Good evening and welcome to our Plymouth Summer Special Town Meeting being held live this evening, Tuesday, June 21st, 2022 at 6 p.m. Again, our Plymouth Legislature is being convened by remote participation. And at this time, we have people logging in. We're looking for a new quorum number of 108 elected town meeting members. And I've been told we have 112 so far, and I therefore declare that a quorum being present, this Plymouth Special Town Meeting will come to order at 6 p.m. At this time, we're going to begin with a salute to the flag, proudly led by Plymouth Civil Air Patrol, followed by our national anthem performed by Katie Theron, Plymouth South High School sophomore, and an invocation offered by Father Joe Reiki, St. Peter's Parish. So sit back and enjoy our town meeting opening ceremonies.
Center. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ready?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Good evening. I'm Father Joe Reiki. I'm the pastor of Mary, Queen of Martyrs Parish, the churches of St. Peter's and St. Catherine in Plymouth, Our Lady of Lourdes Church in Carver. And I'm honored to be with you to begin your meeting with prayer. So let us do this. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, amen. Gracious God, in this time of great fear and anxiety, we ask your blessing upon those who will be representing our town, those who gathered for this important meeting, that what they discuss may truly be directed by your Spirit in their discussion, so that they listen well to each other, listen not only with their ears but with their heart, and that what they deliberate on, which is going to affect the lives of others, may be truly according to your will, that they may truly be directed by your Spirit to make the right decisions, especially to help those who are most in need, the vulnerable in our community. We ask for your Spirit's guidance upon each of them and upon our community, that we may grow together and may be pleasing in your eyes as we grace one another with compassion, understanding, and love. We ask this prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen. And Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
At this time, we welcome Select Board Chair Betty Cavaco, who will now present her opening remarks. Welcome, Betty Cavaco. And Betty is joining us as a panelist from the Great Hall. Good evening.
Good evening, and welcome to the 2022 Special Town Meeting. Tonight is unique for a couple of different reasons. First, calling for and holding a special town meeting, the first in over many years, allowing us to test our current form of government to determine if town meeting is flexible and responsible enough to address any unexpected opportunities as they may arise. Article 1 is a true example of an opportunity that has been presented to us all without the usual town meeting notice that we have all grown so accustomed to. The question is, can we, as elected and appointed officials, act swiftly enough with limited time to review the facts and materials to position this community for the greatest likelihood for success in the future? I believe we can. Second, as in true Plymouth fashion, I'd like to recognize Brigitte Keene, the chair of the planning board, Kim Savory, the chair of the school committee, and myself as chair of the select board. This is the first time in Plymouth's 400-year history that all our elected boards are chaired by women, again, making America's hometown a trailblazer of sorts. This is also the first town meeting since the redistricting, going from 15 to 18 precincts, with an additional 27 new town meeting members. I want to thank all of our town meeting members for their years of commitment and dedication to this community. In particular, I want to acknowledge our newest town meeting members, who are Tammy Barati, Brian Barawana, Richard Cirque, Constance Melihoris, Lawrence Pizer, Alan Costa, Kathleen Dunn, Charles Mathewson, Michael Malone, David Parker, Therese Robinson, Scott Stevenson, Adam Skikes, Craig French, David Golden, Tammy Johnson, Ida Parker, Jacqueline Perkins, Sybil Holland, Teresa McKenna, Rehan Flynn, Ken Kessel, John Masoda, Patricia Edelman, Daniel Bell, Aaron Keaton, Lauren Nesralla, Christine Richards, Carmelina Stearns, Sandra Mumford, Kenneth Stone, Susan Arenstan, Kathleen Bell, Maureen Femino, William Licata, Elise Bruneau, and Malcolm McGregor. I would also like to take this opportunity to recognize our new Human Resource Director, Silvio Geneo, who began a few weeks back along with our Client Resiliency Officer, Mark Reel, and our new town clerk, Kelly McGelrath, who both will begin in a couple of weeks. But Kelly joins us tonight to assist our town clerk's office. We have such a dynamic team. In just over 9 months, we have appointed a town manager, assistant town manager, police chief, fire chief, and HR director. These new faces with fresh ideas, coupled with our long tenured staff and their institutional knowledge, makes us certain that we have the perfect mix to take this community to the next level. This group of dedicated employees are what the select board considers the best and brightest, and Plymouth deserves nothing less than that. To my colleagues on the board, Mr. Quintal, Mr. Helm, Mr. Bletzer, and Mr. Mahoney, with all their broad experiences and diverse viewpoints, we are working together as a team with one common goal: to make Plymouth a great place to live, work, and raise a family. We wake up every day thinking about how we can make Plymouth a better place, because we love this community as much as you do. Tonight, we will discuss, debate, and deliberate on the 4 articles found in this warrant. No matter what your viewpoint is, and no matter what the outcome of tonight's votes are, I only ask for each of us all to be respectful, kind, and open to the discussion. After all, we are here for the same common goal, and that is to do what we each feel is the best interest of Plymouth. Plymouth is our town, and even though we may have differing opinions, this is the town we all love so dearly. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty Cavaco, Chair of the Plymouth Select Board. If there are no objections at this time, I appoint Nicole Manfredi to serve as Assistant Town Moderator. And we're now going to welcome our newly appointed incoming Town Clerk, Kelly McGelrath, who will now swear in Nicole Manfredi.
Do you solemnly swear that you will perform the duties as Assistant Moderator for the Town of Plymouth for this meeting according to the rules, regulations, and bylaws and the laws of the Commonwealth?
I do.
Thank you. And now that it's official, Nicole, if you would like to address town meeting regarding virtual participation and voting. And I believe we're up to 125?
131.
131, thank you.
Good evening. I would like to thank members for supporting this virtual format once again. It's important that all members have a voice and that the health and safety during governance be a top priority. It is our responsibility to eliminate access barriers for all town meeting members, and the data unquestionably proves that the virtual format has increased town meeting participation and attendance to its highest rate ever. We have a large number of new town meeting members, most of whom have participated in remote training. Participation and voting procedures remain unchanged. If at any time you need immediate technical support, please call PAC TV at 508-830-6999, and I have posted that in the chat. For immediate questions and concerns, please contact me through the Zoom chat. I will be monitoring it consistently, as should members. A few reminders. Refreshing V-Voter before each vote is helpful. When voting, please hold your vote until the moderator indicates the vote is open. Conversely, please don't wait until the countdown nears 0 to cast your vote. If you notice your vote was not captured or captured incorrectly, please indicate this through the V-Voter platform by requesting a point of order immediately. You will be acknowledged by both myself and the moderator. If you hesitate to do so, your vote may not be counted. We will not be making voting adjustments after we've moved on to the next article or motion. A reminder, no content may be discussed in the Zoom chat. If you have questions about a motion, article, or presentation, would like to speak, or have a point of order, you must use the Request to Speak feature in the V-Voter platform. Once again, there's a small number of town meeting members who are participating from the library at Plymouth North High School under the guidance of recent Plymouth graduate, I hope I don't say her name incorrectly, Selena Oiwa, serving as tech buddy again. If at any time this evening you lose internet connection, you may travel to the library of Plymouth North High School and participate from there. Again, please be sure to monitor the chat for important information and communication. You may communicate with me directly using this feature.
Thank you, Nicole Manfredi. She is our Assistant Town Moderator. We also welcome Mark Rich of KP Law, who will serve as Town Counsel throughout today's session of our special town meeting. Welcome, Attorney Rich. He joins Nicole and me in the studio. At this time, I'd also like to recognize Julie Thompson. She is the Executive Director of PAC TV, and she is joining us in the studio with Drew Chase and Samuel Franklin from OTI Technologies. And together, PAC TV and OTI Technologies will be supporting our Zoom webinar and V-Voter platforms throughout the special town meeting. Now, according to our town charter, Chapter 2, Section 5, Subsection 2, the office of the town clerk keeps a record of attendance, and pursuant to the next subsection, a representative town meeting member who cannot attend a section shall provide written notice to the office of the town clerk. So anyone wishing to inquire as to reasons given for town meeting absence should check with the office of the town clerk. Also, pursuant to Chapter 2, Section 10, Subsection 2 of our charter, representative town meeting members shall notify the office of the town clerk in writing prior to the town meeting session as to any articles giving rise to a financial conflict of interest. Town meeting members are also reminded that the V-Voter platform includes an option to abstain if needed. Now, in accordance with the Act relative to municipal governance during the COVID-19 emergency, registered voters residing in the town who wish to participate in a remote town meeting shall submit a written request to the office of the town clerk not less than 48 hours in advance of town meeting. And upon receipt of the request, the office of the town clerk shall verify the requesting voter's registration status and communicate to the moderator the registered voter's request to speak. Town meeting members are reminded today that we have a live cable audience. So once you've been recognized, you'll be unmuted with speaking privileges. Town meeting members and officials on our panel are encouraged to identify yourselves by name and precinct or title each time you speak, since some of the members of our cable audience may tune in at different times. Town meeting members are using the V-Voter platform to request to speak unless a town meeting member has contacted me in advance to be placed on a speakers list. And when you wish to speak, please click on V-Voter and you'll be added to the queue of speakers. The town officials on our panel may be asked questions through the moderator. And if you're called as a speaker on deck, please be prepared to unmute yourself once your name has been announced. Today, we're utilizing an electronic V-Voter system, and if you experience a problem when voting, click on V-Voter for a point of order. The other day, the assistant town moderator mentioned that some town meeting members had questions about when to do a point of order or when to do a motion. And so I can refer you to town meeting time, but if your problem is with V-Voter, please call our help desk at PAC TV. As Nicole Manfredi stated, it's 508-830-6999, and report your point of order to the operator. The help desk is monitored throughout each session of town meeting until adjournment. And if you have special needs or if you have a concern for which you do not wish to interrupt the meeting with a point of order, then please call the help desk and the attendant can then in turn communicate to me through the assistant moderator. We request that when you speak, please silence all sounds where you're located to avoid distraction and interference with your audio. Town meeting debate, as always, is directed through the moderator. All amendments to main motions are to be in writing, and all procedural motions, whenever practicable, are to be submitted in writing in advance. I do have a motion to amend on Article 1. I also have a procedural motion from a town meeting member. And if you wish to accomplish something procedurally during the course of the meeting, do not hesitate to click on your V-Voter application to make a point of order, and we'll attempt to help you frame an appropriate motion or question that is consistent with either past practice or our parliamentary handbook, town meeting time. It looks like this. There are multiple copies at the Plymouth Public Library, and I urge you, for those of you that want to become more familiar with our parliamentary handbook, please take out a copy and take a look at it. It has, for those of you that have questions about a point of order, it has in the beginning a table of basic points of motion. So that can be very helpful because, as the book suggests, even if all of the rest of the meeting knows the answer, it does no harm to review and restate a principle from time to time. If an amendment contains a legal question or has legal ramifications, I may confer with town council, and such motion may be delayed until written and possibly researched. That's very important because I had a number of motions submitted to me in advance of town meeting, and there were some that were accepted and some that were denied and some that had to be rewritten. So for those of you that have motions in the future, please submit them in advance so we can help you come up with a motion that could be accepted. Residents who wish to make motions may do so through a town meeting member, and in fact, that's going to happen with Article 4. Debate will be encouraged, and if I've been notified in advance you wish to speak on an article, your name has been added to the list of scheduled speakers. I attempt to give everyone an opportunity to speak once before calling on a town meeting member a second time. All speakers during this town meeting by remote participation will be limited each time as a speaker up to 3 minutes, and the time includes question and answer exchanges. And town meeting members are reminded that while the moderator limits the scope of the debate, you limit the length of the debate. And if town meeting wishes to close debate, a member may click on V-Voter and move the previous question. This motion is to close debate. It is not debatable. It requires a 2/3 vote. And when the motion is received, we'll display the speaker's queue. As assistant moderator and moderator, Ms. Manfredi and I will be presiding throughout this virtual town meeting. We do not intend to become directly involved in the substantive discussion, but will serve as procedural facilitators to this legislative body, and we will attempt to be consistent and follow common sense. Today, all the voting will be done electronically, and a motion to change the order of the articles requires a 2/3 vote. We have such a motion. A town meeting member who votes on the prevailing side of a motion may later move to reconsider the motion. And when a vote results in a tie pursuant to our town charter, as moderator, I may break the tie. We'll recess within 2 hours from the start of this meeting, as provided in our town charter, and you're reminded that a quorum is presumed, and a town meeting member may question the quorum at any time. The return of the warrant to the special town meeting shows it's been properly served. If there are no objections, we'll waive the reading of the constable's return of service of the warrant to the special town meeting. And further, if there are no objections, we'll waive the reading of the warrant. Now, once again, there is a vacancy in the office of the town clerk. We will now elect by ballot a temporary town clerk for this special town meeting. And at this time, Betty Cavaco, chair of the Plymouth Select Board, will nominate a clerk for this special town meeting. Once again, welcome, Ms. Cavaco.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I nominate Lawrence Pizer as the temporary town clerk for the summer 22 special town meeting.
Go. No other nominations have been made, and hearing none, nominations are now closed. As this is an election, the person receiving the majority of votes of those present in voting is declared the winner. And for convenience and efficiency of the meetings, the winner of this election shall serve as the temporary town clerk for the special town meeting. Accordingly, as there is only one person nominated, only one vote shall be required to elect the temporary town clerk for this special town meeting. Mr. Canty moves that the moderator cast a single ballot for Lawrence Pizer as temporary town clerk. Mr. Canty.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. As we all know, the town clerk's office has been dealing with a lot lately. The unexpected and tragic death of town clerk Pearl Sears right before April's town meeting, followed by having to organize and conduct the largest election in Plymouth's 400-plus year history, and then having to organize and help facilitate this special town meeting almost immediately thereafter. The town has found a new permanent town clerk who will be joining us in July. We are thankful for that and look forward to working with her in the future. But given all of the above, and the fact we are here before our new permanent town clerk's first day, I am making this motion so that Larry Pizer, a former longtime Plymouth town clerk, can assist us this evening as he did in our April town meeting. Larry has done this many times before, and this option is the easiest and quickest way to get the necessary work done today. We again thank Larry for his continued willingness to serve Plymouth.
Thank you, Kevin Canty. He is the chair of the Advisory and Finance Committee. If there's no further discussion at this time, we're going to go to the vote. This is one of 4 procedural votes that we'll be having before the first substantive vote. Give town meeting members a chance to get used to using the V-Voter platform. So we're going to call that up on the screen, this procedural vote. OTI Technologies is giving us the vote to put up on the screen. It's going to be a majority vote. You'll have 20 seconds in which to cast your ballot. Once the timer moves forward, this is coming to you live on Tuesday, June 21st. We began at 6 p.m. We immediately had a quorum of at least 108 town meeting members, and we're looking for, there's the vote, yes, no, or abstain. And once we see the clock on the screen, you'll have 20 seconds in which to vote. So there's the clock, and voting will begin when the clock moves now. So you're now voting. Town meeting members have a chance to vote on this procedural motion, and we have 134 town meeting members at this time who are voting. We have a total elected 162, and our quorum was 108. And we're counting down. The voting has ended. We're now going to see on each precinct. 125 said yes, 5 said no, 0 abstained. We had 130 voting. We're now going to scroll through the precincts as we do, and we invite town meeting members to take this opportunity to carefully look at your precinct, look at your vote to make sure that it was recorded correctly. You're seeing precincts 4, 5, and 6 showing up on the screen. The greens are yes, a red is no. So we're seeing precincts 7, 8, and 9. As we continue to go through the screen, precincts 10, 11, and 12. Again, the yellow would be abstaining. We don't have any abstaining. But 13, 14, and 15. And you'll see again the list of people and who has voted. And we're going to continue with 3 more precincts, 16, 17, and 18. So we've been scrolling through the precincts of town meeting to come up with that first vote. And the motion carries. And so at this point, Ms. Cavaco, I'm notifying you I've cast a ballot for Lawrence Pizer as the temporary town clerk for this special town meeting. Betty Cavaco, Select Board Chair.
I declare Lawrence Pizer the winner of the temporary town clerk for this special town meeting.
Betty Cavaco, Chair of the Plymouth Select Board. At this point, once again, incoming newly appointed town clerk Kelly McElrath will swear in Lawrence Pizer as the temporary town clerk for the summer 2022 special town meeting.
Do you solemnly swear that you will be the temporary town clerk for this special town meeting for the town of Plymouth according to the rules and regulations and bylaws for the town and the laws of the Commonwealth?
I do. And I would like to say how delighted I am that you will be joining us next month. I've known you for 20 years, and I look forward to continued excellence in the town clerk's office. I'd also like to say that I am impressed with our town meeting members. We had 1 month from the election to get here, and we got all the people who wanted to be sworn in. Finally, I'd like to thank my fellow town employees who made my long 3 months serving the town possible. It's a hard job, as you know, being town clerk, and coming back, it took a lot of help, and I got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence Pizer, who is now the temporary town clerk for this special town meeting. There's no statutory delineation of the differences between a special town meeting and an annual town meeting other than the required notice for calling each such meeting. Annual town meetings are required to be concluded prior to the end of the fiscal year to address matters such as budgeting and appropriations for procurements for the following fiscal year. Special town meetings are often called to address specific matters or attend to end-of-year fiscal needs. At this time, we're going to begin with our next procedural motion. Mr. Canty moves that all business in all sessions of this special town meeting be commenced and conducted remotely by means of the Zoom webinar and OTI virtual voting platforms. This is a majority vote, and it'll be, of course, roll call. Kevin Canty, on your motion.
Plymouth has already conducted 5 entirely virtual town meetings since the start of the pandemic in March of 2020. And while imperfect substitutes for in-person town meetings, they have worked well to accomplish the business of the town in a manner that is safe and accessible for all. The pandemic continues to be a threat to some of our community's most vulnerable members, many of whom are town meeting members or family members of town meeting members. Given that fact, and the fact that this town meeting has a comparatively light warrant, the safest and wisest choice is to conduct this meeting entirely virtually as well. However, for the skeptics among us, I will point out that one of the articles you will hear tonight in this virtual format will ask the state legislature to pass a home rule petition to permit Plymouth to conduct hybrid meetings in the future. A hybrid option has been long requested, and though we cannot legally do it tonight, we are hopeful that if town meeting approves that article this evening and the state legislature listens to our request, that we will be able to have a hybrid meeting in October when we hopefully meet next. But for now, an entirely virtual town meeting is the safest and easiest way to get the work done tonight.
Thank you, Kevin Canty, Chair of the Advisory and Finance Committee. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, we're going to go and vote on the motion. Again, we're going to call it up. You'll see it's shown, and we're going to call the timer up. Town meeting members will have, again, 20 seconds in which to vote. We hope to get all the kinks out of the voting with these procedural motions so that as we move on to the main articles, town meeting members will be ready to vote. 20 seconds is shown on the screen. Begin voting now. You're voting on the procedural motion for remote participation. It's a majority vote, and town meeting members have been with us since 6 p.m. this evening. We have a quorum, and we're going to continue throughout the evening. Voting has concluded. We're now going to look at the total. 109 say yes, 21 say no, 5 abstentions. The motion carries. Precincts 1, 2, and 3. You'll see we have a yellow, which is an abstention. The green are yes. The red are no. For those of you watching on PAC TV as residents or as interested viewers, you'll see that town meeting members are voting with the V-Voter platform, and we have a counting of their votes. And it's being shown after each vote to give town meeting members an opportunity to check to make sure that the votes are coming through accurately and correctly. Again, we have one precinct, Precinct 13. All town meeting members are here. Precinct 14 and 15, we're missing one. All town meeting members in Precinct 18 and 16, quite a bit of precincts fully constituted with voting town meeting members. And that completes the voting on this. We're going to now move to our next procedural motion. Mr. Canty moves that the adjourned sessions of the special town meeting be held remotely on June 22nd at 6 p.m. It's a majority vote and a roll call if it's not unanimous. Mr. Canty.
I hope this motion speaks for itself, Mr. Moderator.
If not, we're going to go right to the vote. So we're going to call up the vote on the screen. And this is the motion for an adjourned session. It is our third procedural vote. It's up on the screen. We're going to look for the timer. And there's the timer. And when the timer begins, we're going to begin voting now. We're voting now on our third procedural vote. Town meeting is voting on that. And following the vote, we're going to bring in Donna Curtin of Precinct 3, who has a point of order. It's an opportunity to interrupt the meeting with a point of order. But first, we're going to continue and look that the total was 118 yes, 11 no, 2 abstentions. It carries. We're going to scroll through the precincts. And after we complete scrolling through all 18 precincts, we're going to bring in Donna Curtin with a point of order. Point of order is an opportunity to interrupt the meeting in order to speak on a point such as if a vote were not recorded correctly. If that's going to be the case, we request that town meeting members immediately notify us upon the conclusion of the vote. They can also call in if they're unable due to some type of internet issue with connectivity. And we've just gone through all 18, so let's bring in Donna Curtin. She is with Precinct 3, and she has a point of order. Donna Curtin, welcome. We can see you and we can hear you.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator. Thank you so much. Donna Curtin, Precinct 3. I just, on my point of order, wanted to say in the previous motion, not this one just concluded, I had voted yes, it did not register, and then I hit point of order and did not think it went through. But apparently it did, so I would like to have my vote recorded, if possible, on that previous motion, yes.
Thank you very much, and that's Donna Curtin. She's at Precinct 3. And we're going to continue now with our next procedural motion. And this is a motion to change the order of the articles. Mr. McKay, Precinct 8, town meeting member, moves that special town meeting Article 1 be taken up last, after special town meeting Article 5. The quantum of vote is 2/3, and we're going to begin by bringing in Mr. McKay, and he can speak to his motion to change the order of the articles. It is a procedural motion and is allowed in town meeting, so town meeting members are able to change. And while we're bringing him in, let's also bring in Michael Babini, who wants to speak on this motion. We'll first hear from Mr. McKay, next Mr. Canty, and then we'll follow with Michael Babini. So we're looking for Precinct 8, George McKay. We're going to bring him in to see if he'd like to speak on his motion to change the order of the articles. It's a procedural motion. It is debatable, and it requires a 2/3 vote to be changing the order of the articles. Normally, we would go chronologically through the warrant, but it is possible to change, which is important for town meeting members and residents to understand. that town meeting members can change. Town meeting members can change the order in which we debate. In fact, they can move to reconsider once they've voted an article. If someone on the prevailing side wishes to reconsider, that is possible. So we're looking for Mr. McKay so we can bring him in to speak on his motion to change the order of the articles. And while we're waiting for Mr. McKay, I would just like to take this opportunity to thank PAC TV that is supporting us this evening. The crew includes Mark McKinley, Donna Rodriguez, Julie Thompson, Brooke Hoffman, Dave Maybrook, Dave Antoine, Keith Hughes, Chris Quinn, Nate Greenstein, and Melissa Matinzi. Town meeting is going to be live on Plymouth Channels Comcast 15, Verizon 47, and online at pactv.org/live. Do we have Mr. McKay logged in as a... He's not showing up, I'm told. So we'll go right to Mr. Canty, Kevin Canty, on the motion to change the order.
Mr. Moderator, neither myself nor the Advisory and Finance Committee has an opinion on which order town meeting consumes the articles that are in the warrant.
Thank you. I'm going to jump first to David Golden. He's second on my queue, but he has a point of order, so that takes priority. So if we can bring in Precinct 7, David Golden with a point of order, followed by Michael Babini speaking on the motion. We currently have on the floor a motion to change the order. David Golden is a Precinct 7 town meeting member. There's Mr. Golden. We see him. Precinct 7? Yeah, I just saw him a moment ago. There he is. David, good evening and welcome. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator. Thank you. I'm just have a member of my precinct. Again, my name is Dave Golden. I'm the chair of Precinct 7. I have a member saying that she is not able to vote, and she spoke with the folks in the help desk who told her to put in a point of order. However, her point of order was also not recognized. Her name is Jackie Perkins, so I'm hoping that someone can help her out.
Okay, and
I'm messaging her right now.
I'm told that she's being messaged right now from the assistant town moderator, and we'll help her out. That's terrific. So this is working in terms of trying to help these people out. So that's the point of order. I see Mr. Babini is in with us. Good evening, Michael Babini, on the motion to change the order.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator. I'm sorry it's not a motion. I'm in the same boat. I voted twice already and neither one was counted. I went on to motion, to get back in to talk to someone and it wasn't recognized. So this is the first time I've been recognized. My votes are not going through. The response is that it has gone through, but when I look at the actual visual, it's not recorded.
Thank you. Precinct 3, Michael Babini. So his notice to me to speak on the motion came through, but he's saying that his first two votes didn't come through. And OTI Technology is nodding their heads. They've heard his concern. They're over there with the assistant moderator, and they're going to try to address this for Michael Babini. Any further discussion on the motion to change the order of the articles? If not, we're going to go to voting on this procedural motion to change the order of the articles. And we're going to look on the screen to see when that comes up on the TV monitor. And also we'll be looking for that. There it is on my computer screen. I'm not seeing it on the TV monitor, but I am seeing the clock. So once the clock begins, you can start voting. There we go. Vote now. You can now vote. It's a 2/3 vote. Town meeting members are deciding whether or not to have Article 1 heard after Article 5 or whether to continue with the warrant as written. Town meeting members have had multiple procedural votes so far, and the voting has concluded on this fourth vote of town meeting. We have a total 109. Let's look at the total again, if we could. I believe we're going to, on the motion, take the article out of order. We're looking for the numbers. It requires a 2/3 vote. And if we can get the total, and then we'll go and we'll scroll through the precincts. So this is a procedural motion. It requires 2/3. And OTI Technologies has explained that they're working on the reporting of that vote. We saw it briefly, and we're going to go ahead and take a vote one more time on this. But in the meantime, I did see that 109 voted yes. We're going to take one more time. Before we're going to do that, got another point of order from Precinct 2, Matthew Tavares. So while we're queuing up the vote one more time, we're going to bring in Mr. Tavares so that Mr. Tavares can explain his point of order. Again, we're trying to work through a few issues that people might be experiencing before we get into the main motions on Articles 1 through 5. So let's bring in Matthew Tavares. There he is. Good evening, Matt. And
I think it was, good evening, Mr. Moderator. I think that the confusion here, I think the assistant moderator clarified it. I don't even think we voted on this. The 109 you were looking at was from the first or the second vote that we took. So I don't even think that we voted on this taking out of order yet. I think you were looking at old totals. I didn't see a vote screen come up for
all
this.
right, well, we're going to take it again. So again, thank you, Matthew Tavares. And at this point, we're waiting for it to come up on the screen. And once it comes up on the screen, we'll take a vote one more time on the motion to change the order. Again, it's showing now taking Article 1 out of order. And there it is on the screen. There's the timer. You can see it when the timer begins. You're voting now. You're now voting on the procedural motion to take Article 1 out of order. And it requires a 2/3 vote. And hereafter, I did see someone who wanted to speak on it, but it came in after, so we're not going to be able to go to her. The voting has ended. We're now going to look at the totals. 52 say yes, 77 say no, 5 abstentions. It does not carry. But again, town meeting members, look at your vote record. Make sure that it's correct. If it's not, please let us know. We're showing precincts 1, 2, and 3. They're precincts 4, 5, and 6. We have precincts that are fully constituted and voting in the entirety. Precincts 7, 8, and 9. We're going to go through all the precincts and make sure that all of the town meeting members who have logged in are recorded as voting. Precincts 10, 11, and 12. Precincts 13, 14, and 15. And finally, we're going to finish with precincts 16, 17, and 18. So it does not pass, and therefore I'm going to ask, are there any other procedural matters to come before the special town meeting at this time? Okay, and if not, we're going to continue with the warrant. And so town meeting members have had an opportunity to receive some motions. I'm going to read into the record the motion on Article 1. Betty Cavaco moves that the Select Board is authorized to acquire by purchase for open space and or recreational purposes and or general municipal purposes, and to accept the deed to the town of Plymouth of a fee simple interest in land located at 46 Sandwich Road in the town of Plymouth, composed of 24.4 acres, more or less, being shown on Assessor's Map 47, Lot 8. Said land to be held under the care, custody, and control of the Select Board. And further, to authorize the Select Board to grant a conservation restriction in said property or a portion thereof in accordance with requirements of General Laws, Chapter 184, Sections 31 to 33, and to authorize the Select Board on behalf of the town to enter into all agreements and execute any and all instruments as may be necessary to effect said acquisition. And further, that $3,750,000 be appropriated to undertake such acquisition, including all costs incidental or related thereto. And to meet this appropriation, The treasurer, with the approval of the select board, is authorized to borrow $1.4 million pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 7(1), or any other enabling authority, and transfer $2,271,409 from free cash, transfer $78,591 from premium on debt fund. And this motion requires a 2/3 vote. And at this time, we once again welcome back Betty Cavaco, and she is chair of the Plymouth Select Board.
Good evening again, and I believe PAC TV will be playing a video for us. I know that many have seen this, but there are many town meeting members that have not.
And we're going to show that once again on Article 1. This is part of the presentation.
This parcel of land has presented itself to the town as a major opportunity for the future of the town of Plymouth. It's in an ideal location in this community. It's a high value location as far as the current purchase price of $3.75 million. The appraised value is already at 4.3. We all recognize that we have to, at some point in the next 3 to 5 years, reconstruct Station 1. We also know by hearing from Chief Flynn that there's going to be a greater likelihood in the next 10 years that we're going to have to expand the space over at the police headquarters. So this piece of property today is an investment in the town's future tomorrow, because it gives us flexibility to be able to rethink where Station 1 can be, and then long-term where the police headquarters potentially could be.
In 2021, we did a station location study. Headquarters specifically should move because we're right against the water. We can only respond about 180 degrees from our location. So we don't have a good 360-degree coverage of our response area. The study indicated that it would be better if it was a little bit more west, and specifically put a pin in the area of 46 Sandwich Road. The condition of the headquarters has really been deteriorating quite rapidly over the past several years. A lot of it had to do with the water damage that we had incurred over a period of probably 6 or 7 years. There was water basically pouring into this station. The electrical panels down in the basement, the conduit had water pouring into it, and it corroded away the connections where the wires hook up. So it was potentially a fire hazard. We have a underground water problem that is always there. It's constant. We have 3 separate areas in the basement where we have multiple sump pumps working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I don't think it's socially acceptable, if you have the means, to cohabitate different genders in the same living area without some kind of separation. We don't have that option here. As big as the station is, we have one shower facility, one shower itself, and we could have potentially 16 people at this station at any one given time.
It may not be me, but in the future, Chief will be looking to expand, and we need a location to be able to meet that goal. When the building was built, we had 111 total employees. I now have 152. All of my available space is at max capacity. If I wish to, say, for example, expand my detective division, I have no room for them. If I want to add administrative staff, I have no room to put them in without possibly having a double up space. I have plans to develop some other specialized units in the future. Again, I have no space for them. Our locker rooms are at capacity. If we were able to move to a new location, we would have an area specifically designed for our seized vehicles and other seized large equipment. We have some vehicles out there that have been here 2 or 3 years that we can't do anything with until the case has been adjudicated. That we have 3 trailers that we kind of parked across the street because of lack of room in the rear lot. We've had to keep it outside the secure area with the fence.
So we have a 30,000 square foot structure that's already existing here. It was historically used as a training facility. The building itself is in good condition. It can serve as a training facility in the future. And then during the course of the next couple of years, that'll give us some time to then look at a redesign or a design of a future fire station here on this footprint.
The 46 Sandwich Road is interesting for the fire department because We know that we need a new fire station. We know that a fire station could be located in that area.
Where we are 5, 10, 15 years from now, we could be well over 200 officers. So we'll need ample space for them.
We're not building land, and to acquire this piece of property is really gonna give us flexibility in the future so that we have opportunities to make really smart strategic decisions about where our public safety facilities need to be located here in town.
Thank you. And before we go back to Betty Cavaco, we've had a number of points of order. Point of order can interrupt a speaker. We have Betty Cavaco speaking the presentation, but most of the points of order have been withdrawn, I believe, because they had to do with voting. I'm just going to briefly go to Assistant Town Moderator Nicole Manfredi to give us an update. Nicole.
So I just wanted to update the vote count on that request, the motion to change the order. It's currently 53 yes, 81 no, and 6 abstentions. And I also want to remind folks that when you enter into vVoter and do a request to speak, if you do another request to speak, it completely cancels you out of the queue. So once you put in your request, leave it unless you want to cancel that request, because if you do another request, you'll get canceled out and then you'll not be in the queue.
Thank you. And also, I'm just going to read into the record again so that Ms. Cavaco, if you want to speak to the motion to amend as well, we'll put it on the floor. Again, a reminder, I often do this for the convenience of town meeting so that if we have a motion to amend, you can speak both to the main motion and the motion to amend. But a reminder that when there's a motion to close debate, the vote on closing debate will be on the motion to amend and not on the main motion, because we'll take that up first. And here's the motion to amend. And David Peck, Precinct 4, moves to delete the following lines from the motion, quote, open space and or recreational purposes and or quote, and further to authorize the select board to grant a conservation restriction in said property or a portion thereof in accordance with the requirements of General Laws, Chapter 184, Sections 31 to 33. And that's a majority vote on a motion to amend. We'll hear from Mr. Peck after Betty Cavaco completes her presentation and after we hear from the Advisory and Finance Committee. So once again, welcome back, Betty Cavaco.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. And to the folks in the PAC TV control room, if you would please put up the PowerPoint that we have available for our town meeting members.
There it is. We're seeing it on the screen. Go ahead.
Okay. During regular pilot negotiations with Holtec in January of 2021, the town requested that Holtec donate the land at 46 Sandwich Road. In response, Holtec countered by seeking $7.5 million for the purchase of the land. In March of 2022, then Chairman Richard Quintal was informed that Holtec agreed to sell the property to Mr. Veo, a local real estate developer, for $2.3 million. That same month, the town approached Mr. Veo to discuss a land deal for 46 Sandwich Road. And through negotiations, the town and Mr. Veo agreed to a purchase price of $3.7 million pending town meeting approval. Next slide, please. So this property is a 24.38 acre site, and it's located in Chiltonville on Sandwich Road near the Route 3 bypass. The property currently hosts 30,376 square foot freestanding 1 and 2 level wood frame building constructed in 1974. The site is served by all utilities, including electricity, gas, and municipal water. The site has on-site septic. The original purpose, the property was originally built as a religious facility and most recently has been utilized as a training facility related to the Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station. Next slide, please. The property is assessed at 3.467 million and is appraised at 4.35 million as of May 12, 2022. If approved, the property would be purchased at 3.75 million. And according to the market comparison, similar lots were adjusted 5% to 15% for improved market conditions over the past 3 years, thus seeing an appreciation in value. And that is on page 70 of your town meeting warrant. The next slide, please. So the funding of this property is without CPC support. Borrowing would be $1.4 million. Premium on debt fund that we would use is $78,591. And in free cash, we would use $2.271409 million for a total purchase price of $3.75 million. And the potential offsets for financing this location would be the sale of police headquarters, the water barn, and other possible locations. And that's it for the PowerPoint. And myself and our wonderful staff are available for any questions with the town manager and assistant town manager.
Chair of the Plymouth Select Board. We're going to move now to the Chair of the Advisory and Finance Committee, Kevin Canty. But before we do that, I have 2 points of order.
Michael's is going away.
And I'm going to stand Michael Living. Okay. Jacqueline Perkins, Precinct 7, has a point of order. If we can bring in Jacqueline Perkins. And some of these points of order come in and then we're able to resolve them without calling them. I'm still seeing Mr. Withington, but he's resolved? Okay. So Jacqueline Perkins, Precinct 7, there she is, coming up on the screen. So we welcome Precinct 7, Jacqueline Perkins. She's connecting. Town meeting members are using the V-Voter platform. They are able to interrupt town meeting if necessary. If they don't want to interrupt, they can call the help desk. They can also chat at times on the chat for that purpose. Not to debate an article, but certainly to have a question answered by the assistant town moderator. And again, there's Jacqueline Perkins. If you can unmute yourself, Jacqueline, and welcome. We can see you and hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm a first-time town meeting member, and I am a little flummoxed at the moment. I have followed all of the procedures to vote within the window of voting. I have received confirmation that my votes have been received. When it didn't show up on the screen, I have called within the time frame that they were showing up to say that my vote was not recorded. I have clicked on point of order. I have put it in the chat, and I have not yet been it has not yet been confirmed that my votes have been counted, and I'm just wondering how I can assure that my votes are going to be counted from here forward.
We're going to go to Nicole Manfredi, the assistant town moderator, and she's monitoring the technology. Nicole.
Hi, Jacqueline. So if you're following the chat, I made a few moments back, I let everyone know that we are in fact updating those counts. So we do have your votes, but there were so many so quickly that I can't respond to every person. And that's why I said kind of collectively, if you're letting me know that there was an issue with your vote, rest assured we've got it. And that's why I was reading the updated counts. So it's here, but sometimes when there's 10 or 12 things coming in at once, I don't get to acknowledge it. OTI is actually sitting here next to me, and they are the proprietors of the V-Voter system, and they are also monitoring exactly what I see. So they're actually updating in real time. I hope that helps.
The response that I got about it was that it showed up like no vote, no vote, no vote.
Okay, so
Should I call in to do my vote if this next one doesn't record? And can I be assured that it will count?
Or you can text me in the chat. My concern is that you had said you saw the vote on the screen and it was noted. Now you're saying you didn't see it. So I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
No, I'm saying, I think you had put it in the chat, that it showed, I got a communication that it showed 000 as if I had not voted.
Okay.
And that's what was on the screen when you showed the precinct votes.
Okay.
However, on the V voter, it received my votes. It said vote recorded, yes.
Oh, okay. They're telling me that was the one we had to revote.
No, that was all three. That was the first one, and I called immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did the refreshing screen.
Okay.
And it happened again. So then I said, okay, I'll get off Safari and get on Google.
Yep.
And now I can't have a split screen doing that, but I just want to make sure this next one, it's a big one, and I want to make sure it's counting.
When it happens, Jacqueline, message me right away. Let me know what you see, what it says. I'll make sure it's noted, and I will respond to you directly. In the meantime, they're working. Yep. And then in the meantime, they're working on it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And we're taking that time because we want to get these votes correctly when we get to the substantive vote. Again, a reminder, most likely we may have another procedural vote to close debate at some point before we get to the substantive vote. I'm going to hold off calling the votes going forward until after we scroll through the precincts. So although you'll initially see a preliminary vote total from OTI Technologies, which will show on the screen, I'm not going to officially call the vote until after we scroll through all the precincts, so as to make sure that every town meeting member's vote is recorded. And of course, when the votes are not close, we're able to move on. We're going to be very careful if the votes are extremely close, because we're going to want to make sure that we don't call the vote until we actually have clarified it. So with that being said, Mr. Canty, thank you for your patience, and continue.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Advisory and Finance Committee conducted our hearings for all of the special town meeting articles on May 25th. And in regards to Article 1, in a vote of 5 in favor, 6 opposed, and no votes in abstention, the Advisory and Finance Committee recommends that town meeting does not approve Article 1. This was a close vote after a lengthy presentation and question and answer session. The town outlined their desire to purchase this property now for a future municipal use. The presentation said the most likely future municipal use for the parcel was as a location on which to construct a new fire department headquarters and police department building. The current fire department headquarters has numerous problems, and the town has been looking to replace it for some time. The current police department will need to either be significantly renovated or replaced within the next 5 to 10 years to meet the needs of our growing community. And Chief Flynn worries that the present location of the police department does not have the room for the current structure to be adequately renovated to meet these needs. As part of the presentation we received, the CPC voted to contribute $600,000 towards the $3.75 million purchase price to preserve 10.36 acres, all of which would not be needed for the fire or police departments projects on the parcel as open space. The fire and police department projects are not part of this article and would require future town meeting action to be undertaken at a later date. While some members of the committee were in favor of purchasing this property consistent with this plan, a majority was not able to support the proposal as it was presented to us. There was inconsistent messaging by some speaking on behalf of the town that suggested the parcel may be used for a cemetery rather than as a site for the fire and police departments, and or that a conservation restriction on the land was perhaps an undesirable restriction on potential future municipal uses. These uncertainties, when paired with the purchase price, prevented a majority of the committee from supporting the article.
Thank you, Kevin Canty, Chair of the Advisory and Finance Committee. Now, at this time, we're going to go to David Peck. He is the maker of the motion to amend, and Mr. Peck would have 3 minutes in which to make his arguments. So let's bring in Precinct 4, David Peck, and he'll be followed by Precinct 2, Richard Surkey. And people, particularly new town meeting members, may want to know, how do I determine the speakers? Well, anyone who contacts me in advance of town meeting is added to a speakers list. There were 5 town meeting members that contacted me prior, so I'm going to start with them. And then I'm going to go to the V-Voter notices I have, and I have another 6 people, and they're organized chronologically by time. I see Mr. Peck is on our screen. I'm going to need to have him unmute himself, and we don't see a video of him yet. But we'll have David Peck, followed by Richard Surkey, Precinct 2. So we're going to bring them in so they can speak to town meeting. David Peck is a town meeting member. And David Peck, unmute yourself and go ahead. There you go. Welcome, David.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. Welcome, town meeting members and fellow and Mr. Moderator et al. I would like to address just at this point my proposed amendment, and perhaps at a later date talk about the full amendment rather than muddy it. So this particular one is, as the FinCom chairman just alluded to, I'm wearing my sort of planning hat, and I think deleting the inclusion of the conservation restriction and open space and recreational uses at this point is premature. We have inadequate or incomplete planning on this site. One could say, it's been such a short term. We have not had a lot of real time to vet the planning on the site, and it's best used for municipal uses, should we buy it. And more to the point, if we study this for a year or 2 and then potentially decide to sell the property, a conservation restriction would reduce the potential resale value. So for these simple reasons, we can always put a conservation use on later as our plans become more definitive. But at this point, I do not want to handicap the potential value of this site for municipal purposes with our future planning exercises, nor from a future resale value should, after study, we decide it's better to resell and break even or even make a profit. So simple, straightforward purpose. Let's not handicap the planning opportunities for this property. Thank you.
And that is David Peck. He is the maker of the motion to amend. We're going to go to Richard Surkey, Precinct 2, followed by Precinct 16, Betsy Hall. When I do receive a motion to close debate, it'll be first on this motion to amend. And at this time, we're going to welcome Richard Surkey. Richard, unmute. There you go. Good evening, Richard. Richard, we're not hearing you. I thought you'd unmuted yourself, but let's see. Can we unmute him? I'm looking at the icon. It looks like it's different from the usual. Can we, in the studio, can we help him out? You're muted, so unmute, Richard. Try to unmute yourself again. I'm not seeing your, let's see, try again. Let's see, go ahead, start talking. No, we can't hear you. Let's go back, and in the meantime, Mr. Surkey, call in to the help desk, 508-830-6999, and they'll try to help you with your audio so we can bring you back in. And in the meantime, Precinct 16, Betsy Hall, followed by Precinct 18, Carmen LaFreri. So let's go to Betsy Hall first. And Betsy is from now Precinct 16. A number of these precinct numbers have changed for town meeting members. So we're going to bring in Betsy Hall, Precinct 16, followed by Carmen LaFerry, Precinct 18. And we're debating Article 1. We have a main motion. We have a motion to amend. And we have town meeting members who are participating virtually. And we're going to bring them in as they address town meeting. We also have people who have listened to the queue. We see Betsy Hall on the screen. And Betsy, welcome. We don't see a video, but we see you. If you can come up on video, and let's just bring in Betsy Hall. There she is on the video. Welcome,
Hi.
Betsy. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. First of all, fellow town meeting members, I would like to say that town meeting is not on trial tonight. Town meeting has created and protected our beautiful town. For new town meeting members in particular, we are doing the business of the town this evening. I cannot support Article 1 for the following reasons. Financial. National financial advisors are warning that a serious financial crisis is on the horizon. Some of our residents are already feeling the stress of inflation, increases in oil, gas, electricity, food, rent, etc. Our town government finances are also being stretched. Town meeting members will be asked to approve increases in the budget at fall town meeting due to the rise of prices in all phases of maintenance. Residents are continually expressing their dismay that property taxes continue to increase. I do not believe that now is a good time to deplete our free cash and to borrow $1,400,000, which could end up being well over $2 million, depending on how much interest we pay on borrowing. The second reason I can't support is the location. I do not know if this is the most beneficial location for this project. I would like to wait for the study that will be coming this fall, which will give us more definitive information. The third reason is the process. There have been numerous inconsistencies and changes throughout the discussion of this purchase. The process, I believe, has been murky, hasty, and haphazard. I believe that we need a more thoughtful and professional approach. I believe that we must support our public safety officers, and I certainly want them to have excellent accommodations, and I want our town safety groups to be well supported. But I do not believe that this is the appropriate way for us to reach their needs. I think that we need more time, more discussion. I think if we don't have more time, as they say, make a decision in a hasty manner, regret in a leisurely manner. So I think that we're being pressured to make a decision that we have not been prepared thoroughly and well to make. And I respectfully say that I will not be supporting this article unless some very new and different information is provided to me before we vote. Thank you.
Thank you, and that is Betsy Hall. She is a town meeting member, Precinct 16. I see Mr. Cirque is with us still, and I think his audio has been resolved. And Betsy Hall reminds me that one of the motions that I ruled out of order was to bind a future town meeting. So each town meeting can only vote on things for this town meeting, and further, there has to be a warning on the warrant in order to consider a motion. But in any event, Richard Cirque, can we hear you? Go ahead. No, he looked like he was just, go ahead, speak again, Richard. No, we're still not hearing you. Let's maybe call one more time. Maybe we can bring him in on a phone. What? I'm told by Nicole, possibly unplug your headphones, Mr. Cirque, and see if that makes a difference. No, he's saying no. All right, another possibility would be, Mr. Cirque, try that. You want to speak now? Go ahead, speak, Mr. Cirque, because I'm not seeing any mute icon on the screen. If not, we can bring you in on a phone line and try in that manner. So let's come back to Mr. Cirque. Let's go. Next speaker is going to be Carmen LaFerry, Precinct 18. We're looking for her, followed by Patricia McCarthy, also Precinct 18. So if we can bring them in.
Have Mr. Cirque chat
Okay. Richard Cirque, if you can chat with Nicole on the chat, she's going to give you a phone number so that you can call in, so we'll have audio. And while we do that, I saw Carmen come up just a minute ago. There we go. Carmen, okay, good evening. Go ahead and speak,
Good evening.
Carmen.
Thank
Carmen,
you, Mr. Moderator.
good evening. Go
Can you
ahead.
hear me okay?
Yes, we
Thank
can.
you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name's Carmen Leary, town meeting member, precinct 18. As a town meeting member, I am very fortunate to be copied on many emails regarding the articles tonight, especially this afternoon. Many great points are being raised in these emails, but some of these points, although important, can cause one to lose focus on the very core of the meaning behind the articles we're voting on. Take Article 1, for example. The main focus and concern should not be spent debating the profit one would make on a sale or losing 1% interest on the monies we could use for this purchase, but should be focused on, do we really have a need for a new fire station and police station? And is this really the right location for it? And have we had a professional study performed to prove that determination? The answer is yes to all of those questions. I have met with my fellow precinct town meeting members at caucus, one-on-one, and on the phone. I have also spoken with residents that I represent in my precinct and other residents in multiple other precincts. This is a need that needs to be met for the advancement and the improvement of our town. As I mentioned to another precinct town meeting member who has been involved in the town in this capacity for many years, I mentioned if we continue to overload the town with new housing and a weak infrastructure, we are setting ourselves up to fail. We need to review and vote on this article holistically as a whole from a high level of needs for the town. This is an opportunity for the town to meet the needs they have now and to put our infrastructure at the top of the list to support the community we all love. We need to get back to the basics with a strong infrastructure. Without doing that, I feel it's a very disordered approach. It's inevitable that we need a new fire station and a new police station. It's just a matter of when. The longer we wait, the higher the cost will be the town and the taxpayers will endure. After talking with a retired resident of another precinct I used to work with years ago, he and his wife and others that he has spoken with said if the town doesn't buy this land, they are making a huge mistake. He expressed that many of the people he talks with have the same opinion. Will we really vote
Thank you,
on what the
Mr.
town?
LaFerry. We appreciate your comments. We have 27 new town meeting members, so I'm going to move on. But thank you. We're going to go to Richard Cirque. We have him now on audio. Good evening, Mr. Cirque.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator. It's public knowledge that Holtec and the Select Board were and still are engaged in extensive negotiations over the assessed value of the power plant, and that as part of those negotiations, the Select Board made it known to Holtec that the Select Board was interested in acquiring the 46 Sandwich Road property. How then did it come to pass that Holtec decided all of a sudden earlier this year to sign a purchase and sale agreement agreeing to sell this property to Mr. Veo for the price of $2.3 million? Why didn't Holtec sell it to the town for $2.3 million if Holtec knew that the town was so interested in this property? Why did the Holtec town negotiations fall apart? All we know is that Holtec apparently got tired of waiting, threw up its hands, and agreed to sell the land to Veo. Instead of simply ending its pursuit of this land at that point, the Select Board chose to run after a train that's already left the station by entering into a purchase and sale agreement with Veo to then acquire the land from him at the retail price of $3.75 million. after he had acquired it from Holtec at the wholesale price of $2.3 million. The difference between the wholesale price of $2.3 million and the retail price of $3.75 million is $1.45 million. I don't think the taxpayers would ever forgive us if we vote to give Mr. Veo a $1.45 million markup as a middleman for flipping the property to the town after owning it for no more than 30 days and perhaps as short as one instant if the conveyances take place simultaneously. If town meeting votes to borrow $1.4 million, that $1.4 million can be viewed as going entirely toward the quick profit of $1.45 million that Mr. Veo stands to gain if the town purchases this land. With respect to the funding, the Select Board initially proposed that funding for the purchase of this property include $600,000 from community preservation funds. Even though no evidence has been presented that these 10 acres would be connected to any other conservation areas, and no evidence has been presented that those isolated 10 acres are unique in any respect. On June 7, after the Finance Committee voted to oppose this article, the Select Board announced that it was abandoning seeking a CPC contribution.
30 seconds.
I'm going to need 2 more minutes.
Mr. Cirque, we have 27 more town meeting members this time. Try to finish up.
And announced that it would instead use $1.4 million of ARPA funds toward the purchase. ARPA funds are funds which are sent by the federal government to respond to COVID-19. Then on June 13, just 9 days ago, the Select Board voted that it was abandoning the proposed use of ARPA funds and that it would now seek authorization to borrow.
That's 3 minutes. We'll come back to you if you have more to say, but we're going to go to, we have many people who are asking to speak. Precinct 18, Patricia McCarthy, to be followed by Precinct 6, Maureen Renault. We're bringing in town meeting members. These are all people that were on the speakers list, and then we're going to continue with the queue that we have until we get a motion to close debate. So we're looking for Patricia McCarthy. She's in Precinct 18, and she's going to be followed by Maureen Renault, Precinct 6. We're debating Article 1. While we do that, I also have a point of order from Precinct 9, Catherine Holmes. So let's go to Catherine Holmes first, since her point of order interrupts the meeting. Catherine Holmes, if we can bring her in first, Precinct 9, and then be followed by Patricia McCarthy, and then followed by Maureen Renault. This is Plymouth Town Meeting is coming to you live on June 21st. It's a special town meeting. We began at 6 o'clock. We will be taking a short recess at 8. We're looking for Catherine Holmes. She's with Precinct 9, and she has a point of order which interrupts the speakers and the meetings, and they will be followed with Patricia McCarthy and Maureen Renault. Plymouth Town meeting members are participating remotely this evening using the video conferencing platform as well as the V-Voter. I'm not seeing either Catherine or...
Hi, Steve. Mr. Moderator, can you hear me?
Catherine, go ahead.
Yeah, it took a while to get the prompt to come in. So I think that typically in the past, when speakers have run long, we've actually granted an ability to extend time to them. This is a really critical article. It's not necessarily 3.5 million. It actually has the potential for 65 million when they do the building. I'd like to be able to grant Mr. Cirque the time in order to be able to finish what he has to say so he can complete his argument. The debate is why we're here. And so I'd like to respectfully suggest that we allow him to finish.
And Catherine Holmes, it is within the moderator's discretion to determine the length of the time. We have 27 new town meeting members. We have a large number of town meeting members who want to be heard. I'm going to ask town meeting members to prepare your initial comments to 3 minutes, and then if we cycle around a second time, but I want to give as many people as possible. So your point of order is denied. We're going to continue now with Patricia McCarthy, Precinct 18, to be followed by Maureen Renault. I'm not seeing Patricia McCarthy with us yet, so let's go to Maureen first. I did see her as a panelist, if she's still with us. We're trying to bring in people.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead, Maureen.
So what I'd like to say is that we're not here voting for a fire station, and we're not here voting for a new police headquarters. We're voting for no specific use for this land beyond recreational purposes or general municipal purposes. We're not voting for everything in the video that we just saw. We're voting for what is described as most likely, the most likely use. And I do believe it's the most likely use if we get that property. Knowing that we do need a new fire station, it raises the question, why is the fire station not in the article? Perhaps because our major fire station study will be ready in the fall, for the fall town meeting. The video we saw today is impressive and showed it has potential as a home for the new fire station, but it's not in the article. And at best, it's most likely. And I am most likely going to go grocery shopping tomorrow, but maybe I won't. It's not etched in stone, and I'm most likely voting no on this article, but I am paying attention. And thank you. If I have any time to yield to anyone, it would be to Mr. Cirque.
Thank you, Maureen Renaud. We're going to go to a point of order. Precinct 3, Michael Babini, followed by Mark Pulcinelli. Precinct 1, point of order, followed by George Brown, Precinct 7, point of order. So we have 3 points of order, beginning with Mr. Babini, Precinct 3. He's the first one with a point of order, followed by Mark Pulcinelli, followed by George Brown. Again, you're watching Plymouth Special Town Meeting, and it's coming to you live this evening. And town meeting members, there's Michael Babini. Once again, welcome, Mr. Babini. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm getting confused. Shouldn't we be discussing an amendment at this point and not the article itself?
So, Mr. Babini, I explained early on that it's been my practice on a substantive motion, when we have the main motion and a motion to amend, I put them both on the table so you can discuss both of them at the same time. But when we come to the first motion to close debate, it will be to close debate on the motion to amend. So town meeting members can decide that on which they want to argue, because I've got too many people who want to be heard on this. So that's what we're going to do. But thank you for your point of order.
Thank you.
Let's bring in Precinct 1, Mark Pulcinelli, followed by Precinct 5, Michael Landers. Mark Pulcinelli has a point of order, and also Michael Landers has a point of order for Precinct 5. So if we can bring them in on their points of order, and then we'll go back to our list of people who have asked to speak on the motion. So we're looking to bring in 2 town meeting members. There's Mark. I see him on the screen. Good evening, Mark. Welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I won't re-say everything Catherine already said, but I agree that it's critically important on an article such as this that we hear everyone's thoughts, opinions, and debate on it. I understand you overruled her point of order, and maybe I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't town meeting time indicate that if a certain threshold of town meeting members choose to, they can overrule the rule of the moderator?
It is possible to appeal the ruling of the moderator, Mr. Pulcinelli. But at this time, I've noted Mr. Leary would like more time to speak. I've noted that Mr. Cirque wants more time to speak. And I currently have about 10 people who have asked to speak who have not yet spoken, as well as people who want to answer. So I'm going to continue on and try to give as many people as possible the opportunity to speak. Let's go to Precinct 5, Michael Landers. So if we could bring in Michael Landers, Precinct 5, on a point of order. This is Plymouth Town Meeting. It's a special town meeting. It's coming to you live on June 21st. And Michael Landers, good evening. Unmute yourself. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve. I guess I'm joining the choir on this point. If you need me to appeal your decision on Mr. Cirque, I shall. We've already taken a vote to extend town meeting for at least one more night. And on something as big as this, I think that we need to hear the entirety of the debate. And I think, and as town meeting has, this is one of the complaints I've had about not having, about having virtual as opposed to live meetings. Always in live meetings, we were able to raise a point of order and extend, take a vote to extend the time for a speaker if they hadn't finished, if they requested it. And I think you've gone beyond your power of in this particular situation. It's very disturbing to see this, because this is exactly what I've been unhappy about through this whole virtual process. So let me add my voice to the rest of them and say that I think we need to maybe take a pause right now and continue this meeting in the spirit of town meeting that we've all lived in all of these years. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael Landers. We're going to continue on. We're going to bring in Patricia McCarthy, Precinct 18. Can we bring in Patricia McCarthy? I'm not seeing her on the screen. We're looking for Patricia McCarthy, Precinct 18, and I'm not seeing her. So we're going to continue with the queue. We're going to continue on with Precinct 3. No, we're going to do Catherine Holmes again, Precinct 9, point of order. Catherine Holmes. Let's bring Catherine Holmes back in for a point of order. Do we have Catherine Holmes?
Yes.
Go ahead, speak, Catherine. Go ahead.
So yes, so I don't know what the process is to appeal, but I think that we need to appeal. I'm getting text by tons of town meeting members that this is the only article we have to discuss tonight that is of millions of dollar substance. So they want to be able to hear every single candidate. And so I'm going to appeal the decision of the denied motion.
Okay, thank you. And at this time, it's 7:31 p.m. and town meeting will be in recess for 5 minutes. Thank you. I'd like to welcome everybody back to this first session of Plymouth Special Town Meeting, coming to you live on Monday, June 21st. We last had what I'm going to consider to be a motion from Catherine Holmes. It's a motion to appeal the ruling of the moderator on a point of order regarding the time for town meeting members. We're looking at the Plymouth Town Charter, Chapter 2, Section 6, Subsection 4. And this can be debated. It's a 2/3 vote. As moderator, I can make a statement, which I will make a brief one, to explain the ruling. Again, this town meeting now has an additional 27 town meeting members. And so my goal as moderator is to try to reach and include as many town meeting members as possible on every article throughout town meeting. I'm asking for town meeting members to prepare your remarks in advance so that you can keep to initial 3 minutes and then be in the queue a second time after other town meeting members have spoken. We currently have 10 people who have asked to be heard on this article so far in the queue. So that's the reason for that. And at this point, it's further debatable. I have a number of people who are in the queue who have asked to speak. I don't know if they want to speak on this procedural motion or on the main motion. So I'm going to go through the queue for those people to determine who wants to speak on it. But first, I have more points of order. I'm seeing Michael Withington, Precinct 15, followed by Michael Withington, Precinct 15, on a point of order. I also then see several other people who I think have come in since this motion, so I'm going to go to them first. I'm going to go to Michael Withington, and he's right here. Go ahead, Michael. Good evening.
Yes,
on your point of order.
Thank you for taking the time to recognize me, Mr. Moderator, and thank you, fellow town meeting members, for those that were rightfully elected, and congratulations, and thank you for the selectmen and the town clerk. Steve, I'd like to speak on the motion to extend the length of the debate. I believe that it's appropriate that if we find a
Mr.
speaker
Withington, that's not a point of order. I'll call on you to speak on the motion, but before you, I have Betsy Hall, who's already spoken, so I'm going to go to David Golden, Precinct 7, and then I'll come back to Mr. Withington. David Golden, Precinct 7. Mr. Golden, let's bring him in, and then we'll go back to Mr. Withington. These are people who have logged in to speak on the motion. Mr. Golden, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'd just like to say that this is on the motion to extend time. I think this is precisely why these virtual town meetings do not work. There are folks who are not having their votes counted. There are folks who are being silenced and not allowing for appropriate debate. And so what I'd like to say is that following the conclusion of this town meeting, I will be drafting a letter to both the moderator and the select board in opposition to future virtual town meetings. And I'd like to invite all of my fellow town meeting members to join me in signing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Withington, Precinct 15, to be followed by Precinct 15, Wrestling Brewster. Mr. Withington.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, what I would like to do is make a motion that we be able to extend time to speakers so that they can finish their thoughts. If town meeting does not find it appropriate that someone's time should be extended, then they should do that. I had to do a point of order to make sure that I heard Betty Cavaco's presentation, and because the PowerPoint didn't come up. So I believe that people need to be heard, and it's the right of town meeting to have the length of the debate. You determine the scope, but we would like to still have control of the length of the debate. So I would make a motion that the town meeting be able to vote on that. And respectfully, Mr. Moderator, people would like to be heard. If they take time to collect their thoughts, they'll be as brief as possible, but they'll get them across. Thank you.
Mr. Withington, I'm not going to accept the motion because it's the equivalent to the motion before us, which is appealing the ruling of the moderator on limiting the time. So, but thank you, and go to Precinct 15, Wrestling Brewster, followed by Precinct 6, Colleen Coughlin. Mr. Brewster, welcome. Wrestling Brewster is in Precinct 15, and he's asked to speak on the motion to appeal the ruling of the moderator. So let's bring in Wrestling Brewster. He's with Precinct 15.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. If it pleases the moderator, and I would second that motion from Catherine Holmes. It's important, and I think that we're taking away some of the responsibility of town meeting to allow the extension of someone who's speaking. So I fully support Catherine's motion, and I think that we can provide ourselves in a professional manner, but we need the opportunity to run town meeting as town meeting should be run. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Colleen Coughlin, Precinct 6, followed by Precinct 9, Victor Hansen. We're going to first bring in Colleen Coughlin. We're speaking on the motion to appeal the ruling of the moderator. Colleen Coughlin is with Precinct 6. Good evening, Colleen. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to make a special comment from the gentleman, I believe 2 before, that commented about why we shouldn't have a remote section of town meeting. I would like to speak against that comment because as a mom of 2 young kids, 2 and 4, as well as a severely, immunocompressed family member, I really appreciate the fact that at least we could eventually, hopefully, have a hybrid version. So again, being able and responsible for folks that, at a time frame, especially at this time frame, that would not allow me to participate in this as a 35-year-old woman. I really appreciate this. And again, I do appreciate the further discussion of these kinds of issues and incorporating folks that have families, have, issues that may stop us from being able to be in person and can figure out, this type of technology. We so appreciate it. And that's, again, a big piece of why town meeting works and how we can work together in our community. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And we're going to jump to Jeffrey Delap, Precinct 13. He moves to close debate. It is not debatable. I can tell you that it appears that in the speaker's queue, there may be 3 people who want to be heard on the procedural motion. We have a lot of other people who want to be heard on the main motion. So it is not debatable. We will now take a vote on whether to close debate on the procedural motion to appeal the ruling of the moderator. So we're going to call that up on the screen to close debate. You'll have 20 seconds in which to vote. It's a 2/3 vote as to whether to close debate on this procedural motion. You can vote now. Town meeting members are voting on whether to close debate. It requires a 2/3 vote. It is a procedural motion from Precinct 13, Jeffrey Delap. And so we're going to go to that. And thereafter, we're going to go to a point of order from Precinct 14, Nathan Siegel. Voting has ended. 88 say yes, 32 say no, 3 abstentions. The motion carries by more than 2/3. We're going to scroll through the precincts to make sure that your vote was properly recorded. And while we're doing that, we're going to bring in Nathan Siegel, Precinct 14. And once we scroll through all the precincts, we'll hear Mr. Siegel's point of order before we vote now on the procedural motion to appeal the ruling of the moderator. So Mr. Siegel is in waiting. We're going through the final precincts. We have 13, there's 16, 17, and 18. So we've displayed all the precincts. We can remove Mr. Delap from our queue on his motion to close debate. And we've now gone through all the precincts. Nathan Siegel, if you can unmute yourself, welcome. What's your point of order?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Nate Siegel, Precinct 14. A clarification, if you wouldn't mind. So the motion that we're about to vote on is an appeal on your ruling. I wanted to clarify, are you considering that as applying specifically to the one speaker, which I believe was Mr. Serkey, or are you considering that how this vote ends up would apply throughout the rest of town meeting, meaning the length restrictions would be removed, or at least town meeting would have a chance to extend?
So the motion that is being appealed is my ruling for this evening's session of town meeting as to the length of time for the initial speaking or presentation of town meeting members. It's not to limit town meeting members to be able to speak again, but rather on their initial presentation to limit it to 3 minutes. That's the ruling, and that's what's being appealed. So unless there's no other points of order, we're going to now go to vote on the appeal of the moderator's ruling. 2 more points of order, 1 more point of order. Margaret Cohen, Precinct 3, if we can bring Margaret in for her point of order before we take the vote so that we make sure that everyone's question is answered. This can, again, interrupt the meeting with a point of order. We're no longer debating the motion. We've closed debate, but we can take points of order if people have a question regarding. Yes, good evening, Margaret.
Hi, I'm Margaret from Precinct 3. My vote of no was not registered.
Okay, so she registers a no on the closing of debate. And if we can just make sure we record that. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're going to go to the vote on the procedural motion to appeal the ruling. Yes, OTI? What? One more point of order. Oh, Lawrence Delafield. Yes, Precinct 16. Let's bring in Lawrence Delafield, who again has a point of order. Mr. Delafield is from Precinct 16. We're debating, we finished the debate on the procedural motion to appeal the ruling of the moderator. And let's bring in Lawrence Delafield, Precinct 16, on a point of order, which can interrupt the meeting. And then we'll go back to the meeting, and we'll be next queuing up for a
Yeah,
vote.
Yes,
Good evening,
yes,
Mr.
Steve,
Delafield.
my
Go ahead.
vote was no.
Yep.
My
What?
vote was no, but not recorded.
No, but not recorded. Thank you. Okay, I think that completes the points of order. Let's call up the motion on the screen. There it is, a motion to appeal, and you'll see you can vote yes, you can vote no, you can vote abstain. We're going to look for the clock, and town meeting members will have, again, 20 seconds in which to vote. I won't call the vote until we scroll through all the precincts, make sure we get everyone's vote. Vote now. You're voting on whether to appeal. It's a 2/3 vote. Town meeting members have an opportunity now to vote. It's a procedural motion to appeal the ruling of the moderator. We will then go back and continue debate on the main motion and the motion to amend. We have the total, 99 say yes, 42 say no. We're going to go through the precincts and then we'll call the vote. We're showing precincts 1, 2, and 3, precincts 4, 5, and 6. We then have precincts 7, 8, and 9, followed by precincts 10, 11, and 12, and then followed by precincts 13, 14, and 15. And then we're going to go back to precinct 16, 17, and 18. And unless there are any more points of order, I'm going to call it the motion carried. And with that, I'm going to go back to the earlier speakers who were limited to 3 minutes. So first, we're going to bring in precinct 18, Carmen Leary, and then we'll follow with precinct 2, Richard Surkey. So first, Carmen, did you wish to be heard in addition to the original presentation? Do we have Mr. Leary with us still? He's coming in. And then we're going to follow with Richard Surkey, who I believe is on the phone. Carmen, good evening once again. Did you need any additional time, Mr. Leary?
Yes, sir. I was just about finished up.
And how much more time do you need?
1 minute or less.
Okay, I'm going to give you another minute, and if there's no objection from town meeting, we're granting him 1 minute. Mr. Leary, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I just wanted to add that, are we really voting for what the townspeople want? This is what we volunteered for, and this is what we were elected for. As a town meeting member in my precinct, my neighbors, my neighboring residents are thinking along the same lines. The town needs to buy the land. The fire station is a very, very rough shape. The police station is being outgrown. Our hospitals are over capacity. When we add housing now or in the future, we need to consider the burden we are putting on the very much appreciated services from our first responders. And we need to make sure they are receiving the support they need to serve and protect. The town of Plymouth is not buying this land to stop development. The town is forward thinking, working expeditiously within the limited time they were given, and sees the needs of
Leary,
the
that
town.
completes your minute. Do you still need additional time?
Yep, 10 seconds. And is listening to those in authority who are presenting those needs. I suggest we listen to and vote yes to make this wise purchase. Thank you, Mr. Moderator and fellow town meeting members.
Thank you, and that's Carmen Leary. He is with precinct 18. We're going to go back now to town meeting member Richard Surkey, precinct 2. Mr. Surkey, welcome back once again. How much time do you need, Mr. Surkey?
No more than 2 minutes.
All right, I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Just 7 days ago, the Select Board appeared before the Finance Committee and requested the Finance Committee to reconsider its prior vote against this article. The request failed after no Finance Committee member on the prevailing side of the prior vote was willing to even move to reconsider. Now, with respect to the site, what degree of due diligence has been done by the town with respect to this property? If a new fire department headquarters and/or a new police department headquarters are needed, why isn't property already owned by the town being considered first for this purpose? On June 14, the Select Board asked the town manager to provide a list of town-owned properties by its next meeting on June 28, a week from tonight. I think that properties on that list should have been identified and then considered before the Select Board sought our approval to buy more property. There's a pending fire department study of the adequacy of our existing stations that will not be completed until the fall. The fire chief has acknowledged that their due diligence to date is only at the concept stage. Will the existing fire headquarters on Sandwich Street be closed, thereby leaving the North Plymouth Fire Station as the closest station to Plymouth's downtown, where the greatest concentration of buildings is located? We've been presented with no traffic studies, no infrastructure plans, no demolition costs, and no architectural plans for the proposed headquarters. The purchase of municipal property should only occur after all due diligence is done. In this case, the purchase would take place before all due diligence is done. For some reason, the Select Board is so hell-bent on acquiring this property that it wants town meeting to fund this purchase without any semblance of due diligence. I will vote no on this article. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Cirque, you've asked a series of questions. Do you want a response from the Select Board?
No.
Thank you. We're going to continue then with Precinct 18, Patricia McCarthy. Patricia McCarthy, followed by Precinct 3, Dale Weber. Patricia McCarthy.
Thank you. I'm speaking no on this article. Article 1 has been a very complex process to follow. Fire Station 1 desperately needs to be replaced. We did receive a report analysis of fire station location alternatives, but have not had an in-depth presentation and discussion of this report. Its findings of sites are very challenging with using a geographic plotting. For example, the report shows that the best spot for Station 4, Bourne Road, to be at 62 Bromhall Lane in Chiltonville. The report does cite 91 Long Pond Road, the Old Town Barn owned by the town, as a possibility for Station 1/headquarters. We need to investigate this possibility and not buy 46 Sandwich Road. We also need to receive and thoroughly review the study on all the fire department needs, which we are supposed to have for Fall Town Meeting. I consulted with former Fire Chief Ed Bradley with regards to the previous interest in Long Pond Road. It was during the COVID delayed town meeting in 2020, August 10th to be exact, that a motion was put forward and failed for a $30 million fire station at that site. It had not been truly vetted, but he had used information from the architect for Hedge Road. Since he strongly believes now that, and still did, 91 Long Pond Road has much better access to various parts of town than 46 Sandwich. Currently, the services are going, some of the services are going to be transferred to the administrative services of the fire department, and the 911 services have been merged with the county. So the building no longer needs to have those services in it. We need all the plans reviewed and vetted by professionals and us to make the best decision for our fire department and citizens. We should not buy 46 Sandwich Road and use the money towards a new station. These are some considerations. Hedge Road, North Plymouth, has 2.249 acres for its fire station. Station 1 has 0.746 acres. Manamet State Road, 0.96, and Bourne Road, 1.02. 91 Long Pond Road has 2.127 acres. It could hold a fire station and possibly some administrative headquarters. Also, with the busy locations in this area, I'm going to give you some of the minutes and mileage to service those. 123, and I used nursing home facilities and assisted living and 2 schools. 123 South Street, 2 minutes to Station 1, 3 minutes to Long Pond Road. 157 South Street, Plymouth
Patricia
Crossing.
McCarthy, that's your first 3 minutes. Do you need additional time?
Another minute.
Okay, 1 more minute's granted. Go ahead.
157 South Street, Plymouth Crossings, assisted livings. 3 minutes to Station 1, 3 minutes to 91 Long Pond Road. 19 Overy Street, 2 minutes to Harborside Health, 2 minutes to Station 1, 5 minutes to Long Pond Road. 94 Overy Street, 4 minutes to Station 1, that's the Life Care, and 3 minutes to Long Pond Road. Home Depot and all the apartments, it's 6 minutes to Station 1, and it's 3 minutes to Long Pond Road. PCIS, it's 7 minutes to Station 1 and 2 minutes to 91 Long Pond Road. North High, 3 minutes to Station 1 and 5 minutes to Long Pond Road. 91 Long Pond Road is a viable option, and we can use the 3.75 million towards construction, not buying another lot. Thank you very much, and I hope you consider a no vote.
Thank you. We're going to go to Stacy Dela Cruz, Precinct 10, who moves to close debate. It is not debatable. It is going to be treated as a motion to close debate on Mr. Peck's motion to amend. We're going to show the speaker's queue if we could, or if not, I will tell you there's the queue. Those are the people who wish to be heard. And we have a motion to close debate, and it's going to be on closing debate on Mr. Peck's motion. I'm going to read that once again into the record. David Peck, Precinct 4, moves to delete the following lines from the motion, quote, open space and/or recreational purposes and further to authorize Select Board to grant a conservation restriction in said property or portion thereof in accordance with requirements of General Laws, Chapter 184, Section 31 to 33. That is the motion to amend. We're now going to vote on whether to close debate on that motion to amend. You'll see that it's up on the screen. This is a procedural motion. It's not debatable. Town meeting members can begin voting when the clock moves now. You now can vote on whether to close debate on the motion to amend, and it is not debatable. I indicated earlier that once we have a motion to close debate, we would first take it on the motion to amend, and the voting has now concluded, and we'll now see how town meeting members have voted, and we will look at the totals. 96 say yes, 44 say no, 3 abstentions. It's fairly close, but not too close, and we're going to go through the precincts before I call the vote on this one. Precincts 4, 5, and 6. We're going to bring in Claire Montanari, David Golden, and then Claire Montanari on points of order before I call the vote. But currently we're seeing precincts 7, 8, and 9, 10, 11, and 12. We're going to continue on with precincts 13, 14, and 15, and they will be followed by precincts 16, 17, and 18. And we're going to go to precinct 7, David Golden on a point of order before I call the vote, followed by, no, that's the only point of order I have now. So let's hear from David Golden once again. Mr. Golden, unmute yourself and go ahead on your point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. David Golden, Chair of Precinct 7. I just asked in the chat if the content of that chat would be saved and made publicly available. And Nicole informed me that it is not going to be saved, nor will it be public record. I'd like to get clarification from perhaps town council as to whether or not it should be saved and made public record.
First of all, Mr. Golden, I know you're a new town meeting member, but the chat is for procedural issues. It's not for content on substantive issues. It is not for the debate for town meeting. Is to be on town meeting floor and not in the chat. I don't have access to the chat during town meeting, and many other town meeting members. So any substantive discussion is ruled out of order. The chat is specifically for procedural issues where people don't want to interrupt the town meeting with a point of order. But thank you for your point of order. We're going to go to Precinct 3, Michael Babini. Mr. Babini, you have a point of order before I call the vote on the motion to close debate. Go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me, Mr. Murray?
Yes, go ahead.
Mike Babini, Precinct 3. The point of order, Mr. Moderator, is this is why I wanted to discuss the amendment different from the original motion, because actually there was no debate on the amendment because it was all taken up by the original motion. So I think that's a flaw in the process. It's not given a fair shot here. So I just want to make that a point of order. Thank you.
Yes. And I understand, Mr. Babini, you're kind of arguing the motion, which is not debatable and whether to close debate, but your comments are so noted. Again, as I've indicated before, I'm going to do everything I can to try to include as many town meeting members so that they can argue and debate the motion to amend. And any of the previous speakers certainly were welcome to do that. They chose not to. I'm going to go to Precinct 6, William Arenti, who has a point of order before I call the vote on the motion to close debate. William Arenti, Precinct 6. Let's bring in Mr. Arenti, and we're looking for him on the screen. Points of order can interrupt the meeting. We were just in the process of concluding the vote on a motion to close debate on the motion to amend. I'm going to be calling that. I see Mr. Arenti. Go ahead and speak, Mr. Arenti. Unmute yourself, please. You were unmuted, but now you go ahead. Go ahead and speak.
Okay, I have it's a question with this amendment. If this amendment is adopted, does town meeting have the authority at a later date to put this into conservation land if they so
I'm
desire?
sorry, Mr. Arenti, that would have been part of the debate. Debate is closed, so I'm sorry, I can't accept that at this time. It's not a point of order, it's arguing on the motion. So we're going to continue now. I'm going to call the vote, and the vote that we had, Mr. Clerk?
96 in favor, 44 opposed, 3 abstentions.
96, 44, 3, it carries. And therefore, we're now going to vote on the motion to amend. So town meeting member has moved to close debate, and we're now voting on Mr. Peck's motion to amend. Again, it was to delete the following lines from the main motion, quote, open space and or recreational purposes, and or further authorize the select board to grant a conservation restriction in said property or a portion thereof in accordance with requirements of general laws, chapter 184, section 31 to 33. So now we're going to call that up on the screen, and town meeting can decide whether to amend the main motion with Mr. Peck's motion to amend. And this is a majority vote on this particular motion to amend. There's the timer, and your voting can begin now. You're voting on David Peck's motion to amend the main motion in Article 1. This is Plymouth Town Meeting. It's coming to you live. We were recessing earlier, and we will continue for 2 hours from the return of the recess, at which time we'll have another recess. That vote has concluded, and we're going to show the initial results for this. The initial results are 67 in favor, 72 say no, 2 abstentions. And so at this point, we're going to go through the precincts because this vote is close. So please look at your vote and make sure that it was properly recorded. And if there is an error, please let us know immediately. You can click on a point of order. You can chat with the assistant moderator. You can call in on 830-6999 and let us know. But town meeting members now have had a number of procedural votes, and this is the first substantive vote of the evening. And so hopefully town meeting members are comfortable with the V-voting platform since we're a couple of hours into the meeting. And I don't see any points of order. I don't hear anything from the chat, and I'm not aware of any calls. So with that, I'm going to call the vote, and the vote fails. 67 voting in favor, 72 say no, and 2 abstention. The motion does not carry, so we're going to go back now and continue to debate the main motion from Betty Cavaco. And the next speaker who was called and recognized, although I have, 3 points of order, going to go to them first. Precinct 7, Edward Geller, followed by Precinct 6, Peter Geller, followed by Precinct 17, Lori Downs. Let's bring in the points of order since they may be questioning their votes. Let's start Precinct 7, Edward Geller, followed by Precinct 6, Peter Geller, followed by Precinct 17, Lori Downs. So we're going to begin with Edward Geller and Peter Geller. I see Edward Geller. Go ahead, Mr. Geller. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, my vote did not get registered.
And how did you vote, Mr. Geller?
I was a no vote.
A no vote. Precinct 7, Mr. Geller is no. Now Precinct 6, Peter Geller. Do we have Peter Geller? Peter Geller, if you can join us, and also Precinct 17, Lori Ann Downs. We're looking for Peter Geller and Lori Ann Downs. We're canceling Lori's point of order. She's all set. We're looking for Precinct 6, Peter Geller. Precinct 6, Peter Geller. We've already had Edward Geller. We're looking for Peter Geller. Oh, there's Peter. Peter, unmute yourself if you can. Peter Geller, unmute yourself. Peter Geller, we can see you, and if you can press your icon to unmute yourself. I don't know if we can unmute him here in the studio, but Mr. Geller, we're prepared to recognize you if you can unmute yourself. I can see we've asked you to unmute. I can see that your microphone in the lower corner has got a line through it. So if you can click onto it and unmute yourself, we'll be able to hear you. Otherwise, you may need to call in, Mr. Geller, in order to be heard. But we're not able to see you on video, which is okay. But there you go, Mr. Geller. Go ahead and talk. Peter Geller, go ahead and speak. All right, we're not seeing Mr. Geller, and we're not hearing him, although I'm not seeing the icon muting him. So, Mr. Geller, we're going to ask you to call in, 508-830-6999. And now we're going to continue with the discussion on the main motion, Precinct 3, Dale Weber. Dale Weber is a town meeting member, so if we can bring in Dale Weber, he can join us and speak to Plymouth Special Town Meeting. We're debating Article 1, and we're bringing in Dale Weber, and that'll be followed by, there he is. Good evening, Dale. Go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Dale Weber, Precinct 3. I speak tonight in support of this Article 1. As we all know, this site, if we vote for it, will be used for public safety, as our current fire and police facilities are outdated, which should come as no surprise to any of us, as both the current fire headquarters and police headquarters were rated poor and fair to poor, respectively, in the 2015 Town's Asset Calc Maintenance software. Fire headquarters is sitting on an old diesel maintenance facility with very actively flowing water table and several 24-hour sump pumps, which have caused mold and corrosion to electrical infrastructure that supports an outdated living quarters for our employees. Asbestos in the building, as noted by the sign on the front door 2 minutes in on the attached video, is of great ongoing concern, as a microscopic particle can start a long and painful downward spiral to any employee impacted by asbestos. Police headquarters is at current capacity with no room for anticipated workforce increases and demands as Plymouth continues to grow. The building sits immediately adjacent to the old South Street landfill, and methane gas, a silent and deadly gas, monitors in the building have shown steady encroachment. All of this shows that this is a good time to plan an exit strategy. So the forward thinking of the select board and town staff on this issue is much appreciated. It's now up to us as the elected town meeting reps to take action on this article. A 2/3 vote is a difficult threshold to meet, and the framers of our current form of government rightfully made it that way. How you vote is your decision as an elected voice of the constituents in the neighborhood. Please just look at the facts and the facts only. Distance yourselves from all the surrounding issues on this matter. Excuse me. And after looking at all the facts, please consider our neighbors in Precinct 4 abutting this project who favor this article over the alternative impacts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's Dale Weber. He's a town meeting member. We're now going to go to Precinct 18, John Hammond, be followed by Precinct 2, Thomas Pinto. We're now going in the order of town meeting members on the queue. So we welcome John Hammond, Precinct 18. I see him. Mr. Hammond, if you can unmute yourself. And we welcome you to the special town meeting. Good evening, and go ahead and talk.
Good evening. Actually, I don't need to speak. I was earlier having a communications problem.
Thank you, John. Okay. Precinct 2, Thomas Pinto, followed by Precinct 5, Michael Leary. Good evening, Mr. Pinto. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I'm speaking tonight in favor of Article 1. As you all know, there's been a lot of discussion regarding this article. I believe the Select Board has taken a proactive approach on wanting to purchase this property. By buying this property, town meeting will continue to have control over a new and well-deserved public safety center being built in the future. And if we don't purchase it, it'll simply be developed. With the ongoing rise in costs around the country, we'll be better financially situated by buying the property now than waiting on possibly purchasing another property in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to continue now with Precinct 5, Michael Leary, followed by Precinct 2, Everett Malaguti. Good evening, Michael Leary. If you can unmute yourself, I can see you here on the screen.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead, Michael.
Okay, so I can't vote for this, and I'll tell you why. First of all, the land that they're going to use for the fire department, the same use was proposed up on Long Pond, so we do have an alternative site. If this was going to be for land that we were going to put a well to alleviate some of the water problems, so on and so forth, I'd be in favor of it because it would be something we need. I think this is more something we want. And I do want to remind people that, okay, so I checked with Lynn and to see where the town was leveraged. And debt to revenue ratio is about 6%. And we have a goal of 7. We're getting closer. The schools have had 300 additional students. They went up by millions this year. That's not going to stop. As a matter of fact, it's on the start because the 40Bs aren't even completed yet. We also, the meals tax that we're paying town hall didn't quite meet its goals this year. So we had to use the stabilization fund to do that. So it just seems to me in this economic downtrend that we really shouldn't be spending money on something we want when we have different things like the wells in North Plymouth, the water problem up there. The Derby well was just a Band-Aid to that. That has to be dealt with. The roads, we got so much on the table, and there is alternative sites for this. I just think it's something we want, not what we need. And so I'm going to vote no.
Michael Leary. We're now going to Precinct 2, Everett Malaguti, to be followed by Precinct 10, Peter Neville. Good evening, Everett Malaguti.
Good evening, Moderator Trifoletti. Everett Malaguti, Precinct 2. I would like to state that I am in full support of Article 1. I actually was touting this parcel back during the 2020 town meeting when we were discussing between the $15 and $30 million purchase or renovation of the headquarters. during a very hard financial time for the town. We didn't know where finances were going in either direction. I support this purchase for multiple reasons. One, I believe that it needs to be under town control to have future growth potential for the town in case we need it for additional endeavors that the town has for municipal needs. We have always stated as town meeting, as residents, that the select board, the town manager, for years has always been reactive to situations and not proactive. While I get that the reactiveness would be to the past couple of months of actual planning to get this onto the warrant to actually purchase this parcel, but this reactiveness is actually a proactive endeavor for the town to actually use the foresight. Whether we use it as a full public safety facility still remains to be seen 100%. But the likelihood is it will most likely be that for the endeavor of the town to have the best outcome for its residents. The master plan is going to give us better indication of where we want to have development happen, what types of development, how we conserve open space and all that. This is part of what the master plan will be looking at, is how we locate municipal facilities and how we maintain them and everything else. The master plan has not been finalized, and we need to be somewhat proactive before the master plan, because if we're not, we're going to be losing potential land needed for anything that the town needs to do in the future. Some of the statements that have been talked about it's not feasible to state this as protecting a neighborhood, as stopping development for houses, which I am on that boat with that. But if we're going to be fully transparent, we also need to note that most of our CPC purchases for open space has had as one of its main goals as well too. So that shouldn't be wiped off the table completely. I do understand the plights of the community for the financing for this, especially the 1.4 million in borrowing. I myself, as many of you know, and more of you
The
will
first
know,
3 minutes. Do you need additional
I have
time?
needed about 2 more, if that's okay.
2 minutes? Okay, granted.
Yes.
Go ahead, 2 minutes.
As many of you know, I am a very staunch opponent of raising any taxes on the town before we actually get our entire financial house in order and using available funds necessary. While at this point we don't necessarily have funds that are available per se, we will be having funds available in the future once we take properties that we may not need or have no use for at all and putting them onto the tax roll, creating more real estate taxes for the town, while also creating more money into the sale of real estate tax to offset any future borrowing needed for this purchase or any other endeavors the town has. Well, I know people still may not be convinced on this, and there may be still some animosity for other issues for other boards that have come along. I want to urge town meeting to represent the wishes of the residents, not just of the residents that are abutting the property, but of all the residents in forward thinking for the community and making an endeavor that will have lasting benefits for the town into the future. I urge town meeting to support Article 1 for the betterment of the town of Plymouth. Thank you.
Thank you, Everett Malagoody. We're going to go to Precinct 10, Peter Neville, followed by Precinct 6, Anthony Mayo. Good evening, Mr. Neville.
Good evening, Steve and residents of Plymouth. I'd like to read a letter, if I may. And if I have time, I'd like to provide my own comments. But this letter comes from a resident in Precinct 10 who writes, I am writing to request that you vote no on Article 1 this evening. Is it the right choice for Station 1 and police headquarters? No, it isn't. These important resources do not belong tucked behind in a residential neighborhood on a blind corner with roads consisting of windy, narrow, former cow paths. I personally can't get past this. Additionally, access to Route 3 South is not readily and safely available. It is not. Chief Foley says he doesn't have 360 degrees of access from the current Station 1. He doesn't have it from this location either. The chief acknowledged they would have to get permission to use the authorized use only cutoffs to go south on Route 3. He said the state owns and maintains them, and we would be relying on them for plowing, etc. Can you picture fire trucks routinely trying to merge from one of those cutoffs onto Route 3? This is not sensible and is a tragedy in the making. I have in writing from the fire chief that he needs approximately 3.5 acres to build a 35 square foot Station 1 with a 50-year life. Additionally, in a few months, the results of an important study taxpayers paid for will be available. We need the results in order to make the best decisions possible about our fire department. We can then look for an optimal location. This is not it. Our police chief made it clear his needs are 10 years out. The current police station is 28 years young and sits on 5 acres of land. Just got a new roof. The chief doesn't rule out an addition. What a disservice to taxpayers to say its useful life is over. Further insult is wanting us to believe that it's certainly the 50-year-old building at 46 Sandwich Road will be reused as the basis of the new police headquarters. It is not a certainty, and the building is the bulk of the cost. 48 Sandwich is serviced by septic. There is no information
30
available
seconds,
as to the septic
Mr. Neville.
requirements of a fire station and police headquarters operating 24/7. I'll skip down. 10 acres of open space, possibly CPA funds will be requested again. Is it appropriate for the public to wander near a fire and police station? I don't think so. CPC gave it 10 points out of 50. Not an appropriate use of taxpayers' hard-earned money. Is the cost reasonable? No, it is too high.
Mr. Neville,
Among other things,
Mr. Neville, that's 3 minutes, and I want to remind you, you can certainly use your time as you wish, but what you've effectively done is taken your time to lend it to a non-town meeting member. Town meeting members do have a rule that speaking priority is given to town meeting members over residents. So at this point, I'm going to close your presentation since it's really for a town meeting member rather than for you. But thank you. I'm going to continue now with Precinct 6, Anthony Mayo, followed by Precinct 13, Jeffrey DeLapp. Anthony Mayo, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and good evening to all the town member meetings. For me, this is still a tough decision, but after looking at the numbers and walking the site, my main concern is really the facility. And the way I look at it, we're basically paying, if you were to develop this parcel, you're looking at pretty much 100,000, give or take, for each lot. And so what we're really spending is 200 for the land and 1.5 for the building. And if you look at this site, it's been abandoned. And I don't know, Holtec, they just basically walked away from it. And who knows what conditions and what, hazard site this is. And, if you look at history, we already built a fire station on a hazard site. And I hate to see that happen again. So my concern is really the facility on that site. And after, for 50 years and the way Holtec took care of it, it's a little concerning. And then the second issue is really, how much land does a fire and police require? And it seems like, maybe, anywhere between 5 to 3 acres seems appropriate. If the builder was to get rid of the building, that might have, changed my vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we go to Jeffrey DeLapp, I have a point of order. So we're going to go to the point of order. Let's bring back in Precinct 10, Peter Neville. Mr. Neville, you have a point of order that you'd like to make at this time. Let's bring in Precinct 10, Peter Neville, back in to the meeting to be followed by Jeffrey DeLapp. Peter Neville has a point of order, and I see him coming in. If you can unmute yourself, Mr. Neville, And go ahead with your point of order.
Mr. Moderator, I'm just curious as to why I wasn't asked if I needed more time for my own comments.
So
I appreciate the education, but I thought everyone else was asked whether or not they needed more time. I needed another 30 seconds to give my view.
So, Mr. Neville, the reason I ended you was because town meeting has set up a rule in the past. It's a rule that I personally oppose, but I carry it out as the moderator. And that rule is that town meeting members have speaking priority over non-town meeting members. And what you did in your 3 minutes, the way you used it, was to essentially give voice to a non-town meeting member, which is fine. I'll let you do it, but I'm not going to continue because you're really just backdooring a change in the rule that town meeting voted by reading into the record someone else giving them the voice, so for that reason, I ended your presentation. But thank you. We're going to go to Jeffrey DeLapp, Precinct 13, to be followed by Amy Little Hine, Precinct 12. Jeffrey DeLapp, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Jeff DeLapp, Precinct 13. I just wanted to hear from Chairwoman Cavaco to see if she could answer some of the questions proposed by Mr. Cirque. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to bring in Betty Cavaco. She is Chair of the Plymouth Select Board in response to a question from Jeffrey DeLapp. Welcome back, Betty Cavaco.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thank you, Mr. DeLapp. So some of the things that were stated, one of the things was the land would not be connected. No one ever said the land would have been connected. CPC rated their contribution, and that's what they do with every bit of property. As far as ARPA funds, we decided collectively as a group and with town staff that we would like to continue with the projects that we have moving forward. So one of the things, why didn't Holtec sell it to us? That's $1 million question. We have no idea why. And why did why did negotiations fall apart? Negotiations didn't fall apart. We were in active negotiations. So I guess these questions probably should be asked of Holtec. And not that they didn't fall apart, but once the board felt that they were not negotiating in good faith, we hired a special counsel to deal with Holtec. So as far as, what Mr. Cirque was saying about the real estate and the value and everything, I mean, real estate has no wholesale or retail value. And I'm sure as an attorney, he knows that all too well. So we appreciated the fact that Mr. Veo would allow the town to be involved. I mean, we keep talking about the price, but no one seems to mention that it's $600,000 less than the appraised value. So I would also like to, while I have the floor for right now, Mr. Moderator, I would like to actually ask someone from the Advisory and Finance Committee, where that was such a close vote, someone that did approve it, because yes, there was no motion to recommend, but it wasn't a rejection. And I feel that it's important because some of the information that was provided, I believe was misinterpreted by the Advisory and Finance Committee. So there were a couple things that I would like to clear up. And when people say that the uses were, they were all discombobulated and there wasn't a clear direction, when we went to FinCom the last time, which was a week ago, there has been absolute clear direction. The first time that we were in front of FinCom, Mr. Brandisi was in front of FinCom, there was clear direction. This was always to be for a public safety complex.
Thank you, Betty
So-
Cavaco. That is 3 minutes, and you were really responding to town meeting member Jeffrey DeLapp. You did have a presentation earlier, so I'm going to move to a couple of procedural requests. First, Carl Mason, Precinct 18, has a point of order, followed by Robert Shaw, who moves to close debate. So let's first bring in Precinct 18, Carl Mason on his point of order. And this is Plymouth Special Town Meeting. It's coming to you live on Tuesday, June 21st. Our recess ended at 7:36. We'll continue approximately another hour and then take another recess. I see Mr. Mason. If you can unmute yourself, Carl, go ahead and speak.
I don't believe that the chair of the select board should engage in debate, which is what she appears to be doing. I think that's reserved for town meeting. I just wanted to point that out.
All right. That's not a point of order, but thank you. So noted. We're going to go to Robert Shaw, Precinct 4, moves to close debate. It's not debatable, but we're going to show the speaker's queue, and as we do, we're going to come to Mark Pulcinelli, Precinct 1, who has a point of order. So we're going to have a point of order from Mark Pulcinelli, if we can bring him in for your point of order, Mr. Pulcinelli, and then we're going to go to the motion to close debate. And we have 2 of them, but we're going to go with Mr. Shaw's motion to close debate. If we can bring in, there's Mr. Pulcinelli. Go ahead and speak, Mark, unmute yourself if you would. And there he is. Go ahead, your point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. There seems to be an issue with the speaker's queue in that I've been in the speaker's queue since the beginning of this article, since it was opened, even the motion to amend. I think the problem is when I made a point of order earlier, it bumped me to the end of the speaker's queue, which I noticed, even though I had been in the queue for quite a long time. And then I just noticed when you pulled up the speaker's queue again, I was not put back in the speaker's queue after my point of order. And I don't, I've been in there for hours.
Thank you.
literally.
Thank you.
Now
I'm going to call in Nicole Manfredi, the Assistant Town Moderator, and she'll explain the technology. Nicole Manfredi.
So, as mentioned previously, if you request to speak for any reason and then you request again, those 2 requests cancel each other out. And I understand your frustration and that you have to go back and re-request, but rest assured that the moderator is tracking who's speaking how frequently, so he's able to adjust. So even if you come up at the end of the queue for having to resubmit your request, he's able to determine who has spoken approximately how many times and will move people around based on the number of times you've been allowed to speak.
And just to add to that, Mr. Pulcinelli, no one has spoken on the substantive motion more than once. So you have not. So, Mr. Pulcinelli, Mr. Pulcinelli, it goes to the larger issue of not everybody is going to get a chance to speak, particularly if we don't limit the time for speakers. So I'm seeing, 10 or 12 people who still want to speak, and I'm going to encourage you, if this motion does not pass, to click on to be a speaker. But your point of order is noted. We're now going to go to the motion to close debate. So let's call that up on the screen. And this is the motion to close debate. It is not debatable, and it's up on the screen. We're going to take the time. You're going to have time in which to vote. And this is a procedural motion on whether to close debate. It requires 2/3. We've shown the queue. We have approximately 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people plus Mr. Pulcinelli indicated he wanted to speak. So we have 11 people. Got the timer, and we're going to begin to vote now. You're voting on whether to close debate. And it is not debatable. And once we take this vote, we'll then determine whether we continue debating Article 1 or whether we're going to take a vote on the main motion. This is Plymouth Special Town Meeting. It's coming to you live on Tuesday, June 21st. That completes the vote on whether to close debate. We're going to be scrolling through the precincts. We have results, and the preliminary results indicate that we do not have 2/3. So as we scroll through the precincts, unless there's a substantial change, we're going to continue to hear. We did have another person who wanted to close debate, but we've taken that off, so that'll need to be resubmitted if someone else wants to move to close debate, since we just took this vote, and I took the first of 2 people. We're at precincts 10, 11, and 12. We're going to continue on precincts 13, 14, and 15. And finally, we're going to go to precincts 16, 17, and 18. And I'm not seeing a lot of points of order. I am seeing the preliminary vote. Mr. Clerk, 81 voting in favor, 59 opposed, and 1 abstention. The motion does not carry. We're going to continue with the debate. And the next person we have, Precinct 12, Amy Little Hine, followed by Precinct 8, Donna Marshall. Good evening, Amy Hine. Welcome.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Moderator. Amy Hine, Precinct 12. I think we're in an unfortunate situation. I believe many of the people who are speaking out about not supporting this article may support the purchase of this land under different circumstances. Unfortunately, our current select board lacks transparency, and our trust in their decision-making is on shaky ground. That being said, as we all know, the value of land and property is not on the decline. It's very likely that the cost will go up if we wait to purchase this property or another at a later date. If we decide to move forward with the purchase and discover it's not feasible for building a new fire station or a police station, can we in turn sell the property? And would we?
Thank you, Amy Little Hine. And now we're going to go to Precinct 14, Donald Francis Holm. Mr. Holm moves to close debate. It's not debatable. We're going to show the speaker's queue again. There it is, beginning with Donna Marshall, ending with Matthew Tavares. There's the list. And now we're going to call up on the screen to allow town meeting members to determine whether to extend or limit the length of the debate. You'll see the vote. We're going to call up the time. It'll be 20 seconds. The town meeting members will vote as soon as the clock moves. You're voting now. You're voting on whether to close debate on the main motion under Article 1. It requires a 2/3 vote. Town meeting members are continuing with the special town meeting. When we conclude Article 1, we'll be moving to Article 2. Town meeting members are completing the vote, and the voting has now ended. We'll show a preliminary result, and the preliminary result shows that we do not have 2/3 again, and we'll scroll through the precincts. We don't have no abstentions this time. We'll see precincts 4, 5, and 6. Town meeting members and the public have an opportunity to look at the record of town meeting members and how they're voting on both procedural and substantive motions. We're at precincts 10, 11, and 12, precincts 13, 14, and 15, and we're going to finish up with precincts 16, 17, and 18. I'll call the vote. I'm not seeing lots of points of order or a close vote. So it is 80 say yes, but 56 say no, and the abstentions are 0. And so for that reason, we don't have 2/3. So we're going to continue with Precinct 8, Donna Marshall, followed by Precinct 16, Ken Stone. Donna Marshall, welcome this evening to the special town meeting. And we're going to continue with the debate by town meeting members. And so we're going to continue and bring her in. And as we move and wait for her, I just want to mention there is one additional vacancy on the Advisory and Finance Committee. And so if anyone watching would be interested in serving, please send your letters of interest or emails to me, or you can call me 508-746-1414. 1464. You can email me, fst@plymouthlaw.com, looking to fully constitute the Advisory and Finance Committee by July 1st. I do see Donna Marshall. Donna, welcome. Go ahead and speak.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I appreciate it. And good evening to all my town members, meeting members. As I reviewed this lengthy article, the thing that struck me in it was that there is absolutely nothing in there about the environment. And I would like to think that we were proactive and that we wouldn't purchase property that had not been vetted by an environmental agency. I had originally put in a motion, proposed motion, which I don't know where it got lost or whatever, but the thing that concerns me is that there's the assumption that the seller has done these types of things. And I am very, very concerned about the property itself having contaminants on it. Whether you build a training center or a fire station, I don't want to see us get into the same situation that we had at, at the station downtown. An assumption that everything is fine isn't prudent or appropriate. It would be far less expensive to have an environmental assessment study done or a review of the property and the buildings to find out what kind of environmental contaminants, if any, are available or in there, rather than discover that it needs a costly major cleanup for contaminants. I am voting no on this article for many, many reasons, and this is only one of them. I have some issues with the financing. I have some issues with the fact that this seems very hurried and very, out there, I feel pushed into making a vote. The main thing is that I have more questions to this purchase than there are answers. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to the town meeting.
Thank you, Donna Marshall. And Donna, I did not receive a motion, but I would say in the future for you and other town meeting members, I do endeavor to respond to everyone in less than 24 hours. So if you don't get a response, please follow up with a call to me, and if you can't reach me, call Jeanette White at the Advisory and Finance Committee so we can address that. I'm going to call on Betty Cavaco to address your environmental question. Betty Cavaco.
Thank you very much.
Betty, you're muted. If we can get some sound to the Great Hall, go ahead. And if we can have you try to speak, and looking to hear from Betty Cavaco responding to Donna Marshall on the issue of environmental concerns, and we're getting support. Go ahead. Still not hearing Betty Cavaco. So is this, I don't know if this is from their end or from... It's on their end, I'm being told. So perhaps it might be possible to call in. And Nicole can send a number, which can call in if you've lost audio at Plymouth Great Hall. And while we do that, I'll go to Kenneth Stone, Precinct 16, and then we'll come back to Betty Cavaco to respond to Donna Marshall. So first, Kenneth Stone, Precinct 16, welcome this evening, and let's bring in Mr. Stone, who's the next speaker on the speaker queue. He's with Precinct 16, and I see him coming in. Mr. Stone, unmute yourself. Go ahead. Thank you. Come on.
No, thank you. I've been rather torn on this article. Normally, it's the sort of thing that I would vote to support. It appears to be an attempt by the board to be proactive versus reactive, and I applaud the attempt to be strategic and forward-thinking. I'm also concerned about the unchecked residential development in town, and this article would indirectly address that. However, I have a number of concerns that leave me reluctantly leaning toward voting no. As others have said, we're not voting on just 3.75. We're voting on a minimum for just the fire station alone of 30 million. I would suggest it could be much higher than that with inflation and the difficulty getting product. With regards to the police station, I've heard two options voiced. One is to rehab and expand the existing training building, or to knock down and build a new structure. I haven't heard good figures on that, and especially given that we're talking 5 to 10 years from now, we could be looking at ultimately a combined cost of 80 million quite easily. With regards to the environmental concerns, I would like to hear what Betty Cavaco has to say. In the study that was done by the assessor or appraiser, he mentioned that there was a need for an EPA phase 2 study. I don't know if that ever happened. What other lands are available is unclear, including the adjacent Balboni land. We don't know whether we can build the police station up. Reports regarding the values of currently owned properties that might be sold to offset have just been released, but personally, I don't know what their actual marketability are, or which ones would be sold, which ones might be useful for something else. What other infrastructure costs would need to be set aside if we make this purchase is unclear to me. As others have said, we haven't seen the report regarding the needs of fire stations and other possible locations. Many people, or most that I've spoken to in my precinct, are opposed to this. The master plan hasn't been released yet. Bottom line, there are just too many unknowns for me to be comfortable voting for this. I believe the process has been unfortunately rushed in a manner that doesn't allow town meeting members the ability to do their due diligence in making this important decision with far-reaching impacts on the town's future. And so reluctantly, I'm going to be voting no.
Thank you. We're going to go to Betty Cavaco, responding to Donna Marshall and Kenneth Stone. Betty Cavaco.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Great. So just the environmental impact, we have a clear 21E that will state that there is no contamination on the site whatsoever of anything.
Thank you. We're going to go to Precinct 10, Brian Fitzgerald, followed by Precinct 7, David Golden. Mr. Fitzgerald, if we can bring him in first. He's next in the speaker's queue. And as we continue the debate on Article 1 of the special town meeting, and it's coming to you live on June 21st. Mr. Fitzgerald, good evening, and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thank you to everybody else for this debate. I'll be voting no, and I'm going to vote no because I'm not really sure why we're supposedly buying this parcel. As soon as the article came down, we all received an email stating it was necessary to preserve the rural character of that part of the town. And then we were told, no, this is for a public safety building. And it's the right spot because we looked at a map. By that logic, you should run your best airlines out of rural Kansas because you looked at a map. We have a study coming this fall that will tell us where this public safety center needs to be. We were told that the finance committee said no. So let's go back and ask them again. They said no again. And then we were told, please, someone from the finance committee say something nice about this, is what we just heard. We were told the conservation committee was interested in buying 10 acres that we're not going to do anything with. And then we were told, no, they're not. If we're building a public safety building, and if we need one, we need to do this the right way, which means that you do your due diligence. You don't say that we might or might not purchase this building used for safety training for a nuclear power plant. Who knows what's on those premises? We would do it the right way, and we're not doing it the right way tonight. This is being shoved at us. And there are either two reasons that I can think of. Either this is the wrong decision, and we're hoping people will say yes before we realize it, or this is the right decision, but we just aren't going to do it the right way. this is worth doing the right way. If this is the right decision, it will be 3 or 4 months from now after we've done our due diligence and we can make an informed decision. If this is the wrong way, which this certainly smells like, I would vote no, and I ask that you will do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fitzgerald. We're going to go to Precinct 7, David Golden, followed by Precinct 15, Wrestling Brewster. Mr. Golden. Mr. Golden, I think although people have heard you before this evening, I think this is the first time I've called on you to make some substantive remarks. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Moderator, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak.
Proceed.
I'll simply make some brief comments to say that the folks who are voicing their opposition to this article fail to account for the fact that we have a window of opportunity, and that window of opportunity is closing soon. Mr. Fitzgerald said that the opportunity, if it were right, would still be right in 3 months. We will not have the opportunity in 3 months to purchase this property, and that's why we need to support this article tonight. Excuse me. I'll also say that the folks in town are often frustrated with the town, with the select board, with town officials because of their lack of foresight and their lack of vision in preventing developments such as those we see behind Home Depot, up behind Colony Place, and so forth. They often ask why we are building more condos, more housing, and so forth. Well, tonight we have the opportunity to prevent further residential development and meet a town need. Both Chief Foley and Chief Flynn have indicated that this property is desirable for their current and future needs, and I think we need to listen to them. So I will be voting yes. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're going to go to a procedural motion. I have 3 people moving to close debate. I'd ask the studio to leave this on for about a few more seconds. Town meeting members are concerned they have enough time to see the people in the speakers list. This is not debatable. And so, again, we're going to go to the motion to close debate. It's a 2/3 vote. We're going to call it up on the screen. And the motion is from Craig French, Precinct 6. Thank you. And we're going to show the time and the motion on the screen, 20 seconds, and you'll vote when the timer begins to turn now. Please vote on whether to close debate. It is a motion on Article 1 main motion. If 2/3 vote to close debate, we'll work to move forward a vote on the main motion. If we don't have 2/3 voting to close, we'll continue with the speakers queue. And we showed that to town meeting members. And now we have the initial reading is 88 say yes, 43 say no. I'm going to go through. Please carefully look at your recorded vote. It's going to matter in this case. We're at this point 1 vote in determining the result. Precincts 4, 5, and 6. Please click a point of order if your vote is not recorded or recorded properly, and or enter on the chat immediately. Precincts 10, 11, and 12. We're continuing to go through to determine whether to close debate. Currently, we're looking at the precincts 13, 14, and 15. Please check to make sure your vote was recorded and make sure that it was recorded correctly. We're completing and rounding out 16, 17, and 18. And once again, we're looking to see, I have a couple of points of order, so I'm going to call on them before I call on the vote. First, Kendra Maxey. If we can bring in Kendra, and we're going to be followed by David Golden. We have 2 points of order that I want to address. In first, Precinct 7, Kendra Maxey, followed by Precinct 7, David Golden. So if we can bring the 2 of them back for their points of order on the vote that was just taken. And I see Kendra. Kendra, unmute yourself, and what's your point of order?
Hi, my vote was not recorded. I voted yes.
You voted yes to close debate.
Yes.
We'll so note that.
Thank you.
Okay, and the other one, David Golden, what's your point of order?
I too voted yes.
I voted yes. Okay, we have that. Okay, and in looking at the revised vote, and they weren't in the original vote? Right. So unless there are any more, I had 90 voting in favor, 43 in opposition? 44, you got an extra one? No, I thought I saw 43. And so what are you showing? What is it? 91 voting in favor, 45 in opposition, and unless there are any others, the motion carries. And so we're closing debate. Again, town meeting members, this is why your vote counts, because it's a one vote difference on the 2/3. So with that, we're going to vote on the main motion. And I would just further observe that 136 out of 162 town meeting members voted, and it was determined by one vote. So your votes count. At this point, we're going to continue and take a vote on the main motion on Article 1. No, it's been called, so we've called the vote. So please go now to the main motion, Article 1, OTI, if we can display that. We're not going to be changing any more votes at this time. We've had our points of order. And there it is, and we're going to call up the time. You're going to now vote on the main motion, Article 1, and the vote now. Please vote on Article 1. It's a main motion on acquisition of property. It requires a 2/3 vote of town meeting, and following this vote, we'll be going to Article 2. So we're going to continue now at this time with the vote. The voting has concluded. I'm not going to call the vote, but we're going to show the initial vote. 59 say yes, 84 say no. It's not at all close, so we're going to just go through the precincts. I am going to call it as having failed. It did not pass by 2/3. Precincts 4, 5, and 6. We're going to continue with precincts 7, 8, and 9. And we're going to continue to show the votes on precincts 10, 11, and 12. And we're going to continue 13, 14, and 15. And finally, precincts 16, 17, and 18. And the motion fails. At this point, Article 2, hybrid town meetings. Mr. Canty moves the town vote to authorize the Select Board to petition the Massachusetts General Court for special legislation in regarding to holding remote and hybrid town meetings. And the form is provided on pages 181 to 183 in the June 21, 2022 Special Town Meeting Report and recommendations of the Advisory and Finance Committee, which substitutes special legislation, further clarifies the process for such town meetings specifically within the town with no sunset provision and no reliance on future legislative action allowing for such meetings, provided, however, that the general court may make clerical or editorial changes of form only to the bill. Unless the Select Board approves amendments to the bill before enactment by the general court, and provided further that the Select Board is hereby authorized to approve amendments which shall be within the scope of the general public objectives of the petition. It's a majority vote. Mr. Canty, on your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. In a vote of 9 in favor, 0 opposed, and 2 abstentions, the Advisory and Finance Committee recommends town meeting approve Article 2. Approval of this article will authorize the Select Board to petition the Massachusetts General Court for special legislation in regards to holding hybrid town meetings. This home rule petition, once enacted into law, would give Plymouth the option to hold hybrid or entirely virtual town meetings with no sunset clause or expiration date on this ability. The moderator would have to request which type of town meeting to hold. The select board would have to approve that format selection, and town meeting would have to authorize that business be conducted in the selected format manner before any other business is taken up in the given town meeting. This maintains the basic structure of the procedure used since the outbreak of the pandemic that town meeting is familiar with, but will permit town meetings to be conducted in the much requested hybrid format, safe from legal challenge going forward. The specific text of the petitioned special legislation is included in the report and recommendations of the Advisory and Finance Committee book.
Thank you. Kevin Canty is chair of the Advisory and Finance Committee. We're going to begin with Charles Matheson, Precinct 4, followed by Mark Pulcinelli, Precinct 1. Mr. Matheson, good evening. And unmute yourself. There you go. Charles.
Hi, and thank you. I think everyone is in favor of a hybrid town meeting, and especially as demonstrated tonight, remote is difficult at best. However, the language of this article gives way too much power to the moderator and selectmen in calling that hybrid meeting. I think it would be ideal if hybrid was the default, and that we needn't go through the moderator and selectmen to call it. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we go to Mr. Pulcinelli, I have a point of order. Precinct 12, Patricia Edelman, bringing in Patricia first, followed by a motion to close debate from David Golden. So let's first go to Patricia Edelman, who has a point of order.
She is at the high school.
She's at the high school, so if we can bring her in from the high school. She's at the library at the high school.
Yep, and I think it's just a vote confirmation.
And I'm being told by the assistant moderator it may just be a vote confirmation.
Nicole, what's the name of the person at the high school? Virginia Johnson. Oh, no, the tech person?
Yeah.
Selena.
Logged in as at the high school.
Oh, Virginia Johnson.
Virginia Johnson.
Okay. We're going to bring in Patricia Edelman from the high school on a point of order. And then we're going to have the motion to close debate. And this is, I see Virginia Johnson coming in. Let's bring her in. She's at the high school with Patricia Edelman. So that may assist us in getting Patricia's point of order. So Virginia, go ahead. Virginia or Patricia?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Good evening.
My vote wasn't counted, the last vote. And I hit point of order, but nothing happened.
All right, and you're Patricia Edelman, right?
Right.
Okay, and how did you vote?
I voted no.
You voted no. Thank you very much. So noted.
Thank you.
Now we're going to go to David Golden, Precinct 7, a motion to close debate. It is not debatable. We're going to show the queue one more time. We have 3 people in the speaker's queue who wanted to speak. We're now going to vote on whether to close debate on Article 2. So we're going to call that up on the screen. We're going to get the clock in place, and we're going to take a vote on whether to close debate. It's a 2/3 vote, not debatable. And let's see the timer so that town meeting members can vote when the timer moves. And voting will begin now. You're voting on whether to close debate on Article 2, which is a motion for hybrid town meetings. This is coming to you live on Tuesday, June 21st. We began at 6. We're going to continue for about another half hour, and then we'll take a recess. That concludes the vote on the motion to close debate. 103 say yes, 34 no, 1 abstention. Debate is closed. We'll quickly scroll through the precincts. There's 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to continue with 4, 5, and 6. And town meeting members are actively voting. Precinct 7, 8, and 9. And continuing precincts 10, 11, and 12. And precincts 13, 14, and 15, we had 138 town meeting members voting on that last vote, precincts 16, 17, and 18. That concludes the vote. We're now going to go to the main motion under Article 2. And again, this is a majority vote. So town meeting is going to vote on whether or not to approve Article 2. It's up on the screen. Let's look for the clock. And once we get the clock, we're going to start voting. And town meeting is voting now. We're voting on Article 2, hybrid town meetings. Town meeting has been in session now for about 3 hours, a little more than 3 hours, not quite 3 hours. No, a little more. But in any event, we're going to continue regardless. And that concludes the voting. 107 say yes, 31 say no, 2 abstentions. It's not close, but we're going to scroll through the precincts. And while we scroll through the precincts, I'm going to read into the record Article 3, which is a motion to the lease of town property for telecommunication purposes. Mr. Canty moves the town vote to transfer the care, custody, management, and control of the property described below from the Select Board for wastewater and any other purposes for which property is held to the Select Board for such purposes and for the additional purpose of leasing for telecommunications purposes, and to authorize the Select Board to enter into such a lease or leases for telecommunications purposes for all or a portion of the property located at 131 Camelot Drive, shown as Lot 24-2 on Plymouth Assessors Map 83, further described in order of taking, recorded with the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds on page 215 of Book 16335. Upon such terms and conditions as the Select Board determined to be appropriate, such lease or leases to exceed 3 years, and to authorize the Select Board to grant such non-exclusive access and utility easements as the Select Board deems appropriate in support of such issues, and to further authorize the Select Board to enter into such agreements and execute such instruments as may be necessary to effectuate the purposes of this article. It's a 2/3 vote. Mr. Canty.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. In a unanimous vote of 11 in favor, 0 in opposition, and no abstentions, the Advisory and Finance Committee recommends town meeting approve Article 3. Approval of this article will transfer the care, custody, management, and control of the property located at 131 Camelot Drive for the purposes of leasing for telecommunication purposes and open up a new potential revenue source for the town at this location. Similar lease agreements have been entered into with private companies at other locations in town, and those arrangements generate between $35,000 and $64,000 in revenue per location annually. Revenue obtained through these lease agreements goes into the general fund.
The Chair of the Advisory and Finance Committee. We're now going to go to Precinct 10, Peter Neville, who wants to speak on this motion. Let's bring back in Peter Neville, and I recognized him, but unfortunately, Mr. Neville, since you're not here yet, well, let's hear from Mr. Neville, and then we're going to go to Mr. Tavares. Go ahead, Peter Neville.
Thank you, Steve. I'm very confused by this article, and I brought it up at the caucus, and at our caucus meeting, we had trouble understanding why the Select Board was basically moving property or changing the use of property. We couldn't understand what was going on here. The question is there an antenna now at the wastewater treatment plant? And if there is, who controls it? Is it a DPW antenna? That would be the first question. And then, what are they doing? What change are they affecting? There's no mention of who's going to control this. And I would hate to think that the fire department or the police department would have exclusive use of this antenna, and somehow revenues generated would be restricted for public safety. So those are the questions.
Thank you, Peter Neville, Precinct 10. We're going to go to the Great Hall and look for a response. from one of the participants in the Great Hall to respond to Peter Neville on this article that is before town meeting. We then have a couple of procedural motions. So do we have someone at town hall who wishes to be recognized as a speaker in order to respond to Peter Neville? And I see we're moving towards the microphone, and let's see if we have someone who's going to respond down at the Great Hall.
We're just waiting.
I see we've got somebody at the speaker's queue at the podium. Can we go to the podium view, or is that the view we're going to have? Again, I see people moving at Town Hall, and we're looking for some responses to the question from Peter Neville. So if someone at Town Hall wants to speak into one of the microphones.
We are ready whenever you are, Mr. Moderator.
Go ahead. Derek Brindisi, Town Manager.
Mr. Moderator, good evening, town meeting members. To Mr. Neville's question, this is a fire communications tower that is located on the current wastewater treatment plant facility parcel of land. I think that's probably where some of the confusion comes in. And any revenue generated from leasing space on the tower itself would be deposited into the general accounts.
Thank you. We're going to go now. We have two motions to close debate. The first one, Precinct 2, Matthew Tavares, moves to close debate, and we have one person in the speaker's queue, and that's Everett Malaguti. So a motion to close debate, it's not debatable, and we're going to go ahead and vote now on whether to close debate. We're showing it up on the screen, and we're going to show the timer, and then town meeting members will get to vote on this motion to close debate. It's a 2/3 vote. Voting begins now. Please vote on whether to close debate on this article, and town meeting members are going to be able to determine whether or not to close debate on Article 3, the main motion. This is coming to you live this evening. Remote participation by town meeting. Voting has ended. The preliminary results show that town meeting members do want to close debate, so I'm going to call it 117 voting yes, 19 voting no, 1 abstention. It's not close. We're going to scroll through all the precincts, and once we scroll through the precincts, we're going to take a vote on the main motion under Article 3. Following that, we're going to go to Article 4, and then we'll continue with Article 5. You see the precincts have voted, and we're coming now to the last 3 precincts, 16, 17, and 18. And that concludes on this motion to close debate. Now we're going to call up a vote on the main motion under Article 3. This is a 2/3 vote on Article 3. And we're going to look at the clock with the vote. And once we see that, town meeting members are going to get ready to vote on the main motion. There's the voting clock. And when it starts to run, we're going to start voting. Vote now. You're voting on Article 3 on the main motion. It's a 2/3 vote. And once we have the vote, we're going to be moving into Article 4. And so town meeting is going through the warrant chronologically. And this completes the voting on Article 3. And the preliminary results are not close. 135 yes, 3 no, 1 abstention. I'm going to call the vote. And as we scroll through the precincts, I'm going to read into the record Article 4. And this is a citizen's petition. Ms. Ida Parker, Precinct 7, moves that the town vote to amend the town general bylaws, Wetlands Protection, Chapter 196, Sections 196-5A, as written in the warrant. And as written in the warrant, it says these rules, regulations, design specifications, and policy guidelines or amendments adopted by the commission must be approved by a vote at town meeting or taken into action relative thereto. And so we have scrolled through the precincts, and now we're going to go to a petitioner presentation followed by Kevin Canty, Chair of the Advisory and Finance Committee. I'm going to call on Randolph Parker, who is the making the petitioner presentation. Good evening, Mr. Parker.
Good evening, Mr. Trifletti. How are you?
I'm doing just fine, Mr. Parker. Proceed.
Thank you. Good evening. For the record, my name is Randy Parker, petitioner for Article 4. This presentation is probably 8 minutes long. A little bit of introduction from me. I do have a letter I've been asked to read into the record. It's short, and then just a couple of questions and a brief closing. So, on Article 5, there will be no motion or action in order to focus on consideration of Article 4, the approval or ratification of wetland regulations. Returning wetland regulations to your review does not mean that as legislators, one has to study, understand, dissect, amend, or change anything to do with these regulations. It means we treat the wetlands like zoning bylaw adoptions, because in this town of 100 square miles and 50 miles of inland and coastal waterfront, wetland use regulations have a very significant, if not huge, impact on our town, its land, its use, its value, and its peoples. Same as zoning. This petitioned article required a lot of effort from a lot of people in short order for this special town meeting. Professionals from local engineering firms stepped up. We are concerned. I hope you all got the memo. If so, you are well enough informed on my part. However, the team offers a letter for me to read into the record. Dear town meeting members, and I better comment, I took some literary license for those team members that might be watching. I shortened it up and took out some specifics. We wouldn't want town meeting to get bored. The town of Plymouth enacted a local wetland bylaw in 1989. That bylaw was approved by a town meeting vote. The adoption of regulations and fee schedule was included as part of the local bylaw. In it, town meeting voted to allow the commission to enact rules and regulations to protect areas subject to jurisdiction. The bylaw does not allow the Conservation Commission to add or change the areas subject to jurisdiction as stated in a section of the bylaw 196-4. The commission has worked to update the rules and regulations. We believe they should be consistent with the local bylaw. It is clear that the new rules conflict and include areas outside town meetings at intent at the time and now. The main issue is that the commission has put the horse before the cart. It's not my main issue, but the local wetland bylaw adopted in '89 needs to be amended to be current with today's conditions and should have been amended prior to the adoption of these rules and regulations. And that's true. As you know, amending the local bylaw requires a positive vote by town meeting members. The commission will now ask, after the fact, for the wetland bylaw to be amended to correspond with these new rules and regulations, since they conflict. This puts town meeting members and your constituents at a disadvantage. The town of Plymouth will now be liable to financially defend against appeals taken by Plymouth residents against rules and regulations that conflict with the local bylaw. That's all they had to say. Before I close, I note a postscript to the above letter says to me, you should end your presentation by asking any conservation member that may be present at the meeting. I think their chair, Bruce Howard's on the list to speak. First question. Why would they, the commission, pass a set of regulations that they know are in direct conflict with the bylaw. The second question is, why should town meeting accept incompatible and incomplete? In closing, the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissions, called MAC, M-A-C-C, has a strategic plan. An important part of it is building respect for commissions. That is not happening here, and our commissioners do deserve respect. In a eulogy to their Mr. Sheffy, Max said he cared as much for the human condition as he did the natural world. You could do the same by reserving the ability to review regulations affecting your constituents and our mutual woods and waters before we find ourselves in other ongoing contests, and encourage respect and trust. Again, in the commission, we are hopeful your positive vote will motivate a reconsideration of new regulations to be revised and adopted in everybody's best interest by this town meeting. This is all about the need for check and balance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and that's Randolph Parker speaking on behalf of the petitioner. We have a motion to close debate from Brian Baragwana, Precinct 2. We'll show the speakers queue. In addition to those in the queue, I also received a request from Bruce Howard, Chair of the Conservation Commission. So those are the speakers who have requested time to speak, and we're now going to go to the motion to close debate on Article 4. It is not debatable. We'll call up the motion, and then we'll call up the timer, and town meeting members can decide whether or not they wish to continue to debate or move forward. There's the timer, and town meeting is going to begin voting now. You're voting on whether to close debate on Article 4. It is not debatable. Town meeting members are closing in on another 2-hour recess, and at this time, the voting on this is concluding. It is closed. We'll look for the preliminary results. 88 say yes, no 50, and 0 abstentions. It does not carry. So we're going to begin with Bruce Howard. He is Chair of the Conservation Commission, and we'll wait as we scroll through the precincts so that town meeting members can see if their vote was properly recorded. It's not that close, so I've called the vote as not passing to close debate. And so based on that, we're going to continue, and we're going to hear from Bruce Howard, Chair of the Conservation Commission. Mr. Howard, good evening.
Good evening. I'm sharing my screen. Can you see it?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Again, my name is Bruce Howard. I'm the chair of the Conservation Commission. The commission has significant concerns regarding Article 4, which proposes to amend the town's wetlands bylaw. As you may know, the commission has been working on updated rules and regulations. And in doing so, we followed the process specified in the bylaw, which states that the Conservation Commission may amend the rules and regulations after public notice and public hearing. In the recent changes that we addressed, we did discuss and voted on during the Commission's public hearing each of the points raised and included in the rules and regulations. This was done with extensive feedback received from the public and by much of the engineers who come before us. Much of the feedback was incorporated into the document that we finalized. These rules and regulations were further reviewed by town's legal counsel and then by a third-party engineering firm with an independent legal team. Again, many of the comments received were included into the final version. The final version was voted on and approved by the commission during an advertised public hearing. The commission is concerned that this article will prove burdensome because the specifics of the conservation documents are often scientific and technical in nature, despite what Randy may contend. Town meeting members will need to be educated on specific topics related to biology, chemistry, geology, ecology, and civil engineering, and enabling them to arrive at an informed decision. Coordination and cooperation with other town departments is key moving forward. These departments will also need to educate town meeting members on the subjects and implications addressed in documents that may come before them. The town meeting format could potentially open the door for changes so significant as to alter the intent of the regulations and may result in rules and regulations that would be in conflict with the Wetlands Protection Act and/or Plymouth's Wetland Protection Bylaw. It's with this in mind, I ask for a no vote on Article 4.
Thank you. And that's Bruce Howard, Chair of the Conservation Commission. Moving now to Kevin Canty, Chair of the Advisory and Finance Committee. Mr. Canty.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. In a unanimous vote of 0 in favor, 10 in opposition, and no abstentions, the Advisory and Finance Committee recommends that town meeting does not approve Article 4. This article seeks to require the rules, regulations, and other regulatory responsibilities of the Conservation Commission to be approved by town meeting before they take effect. Town meeting has previously voted to relieve itself of such responsibility. Concerns were expressed to the committee that restoring such a process would significantly complicate the regulatory process, prevent the commission from effectively responding to developments outside of the town meeting calendar, and interfere with the ability of trusted commission members with expertise to do their job of protecting Plymouth's wetlands and water effectively.
Thank you, Kevin Canty, Chair of the Advisory and Finance Committee. We have two motions to close debate. I'm going to go with the first one. Precinct 13, Jeffrey Delap moves to close debate. We can remove the other one from Thomas Pinto and then show the speaker's queue. We'll show that for a few minutes, for a few seconds, and you'll see the list of people who still wish to be heard. So we're going to be calling up on the screen the motion to close debate, and we're going to show the timer, and then town meeting members get a chance to vote again as to whether to close debate. The timer is there. You're going to begin voting now. You're voting on whether to close debate on Article 4, the citizens petition motion from Ms. Ida Parker, Precinct 7. And so town meeting members get an opportunity to determine whether to close debate. This is not debatable. They've had multiple procedural motions this evening. Voting closes. We're now going to see the initial results. The initial results are 87 having voted in favor, 42 in opposition, 0 abstentions. I'm not going to call it yet. We're going to look and see if we have any points of order on voting. We're looking at precincts 4, 5, and 6, and 7, 8, and 9. Please look at your votes to make sure they're correctly tabulated. Precincts 10, 11, and 12, 13, 14, and 15, and finally 16, 17, and 18. And again, we're going to look and see if we have a point of order from Lawrence Delafield. Bring in Lawrence Delafield, please. And we'll determine from Mr. Delafield point of order. We had Mr. Delafield in earlier. We'll bring him in again. There he is. Unmute yourself, Mr. Delafield.
I voted no, but it was not counted.
You voted no. Okay. That brings us up to 43. And we have 3 additional yeses that have come through. Okay. And so at this point, what? Okay, so we're going to call the votes since we have no other points of order. What? And we have a no from, make sure we counted all these, Carmelina Stearns voted no, and Carmen LaFerry voted yes, and Colleen Coughlin voted yes. Did you get all those?
Was this to close debate?
Closed debate.
Okay, Lenny Vaz was also a yes.
And to close debate, Lenin Vaz is a yes. Those are the ones you had. Okay, good. So, 90 voting in favor, 44 in opposition. The motion to close debate carries. And so we're now, before we go to the vote, based on our town charter, we're going to take a recess. It's going to be a 1-minute recess, and then we'll come back to vote. So if we can just take a 1-minute recess to comply with the 2-hour rule, we're going to do that now. Everybody can stretch and just take a minute while we comply with our 2-hour recess requirement, and then we're going to be moving on to voting on Article 4. And while we're doing that, again, I'd like to thank a number of people. My assistant town moderator, Nicole Manfredi, certainly also all the hard work from Jeanette White from the Advisory and Finance Committee, and all the members of the Advisory and Finance Committee with Kevin Canty at the helm. Again, our temporary town meeting clerk, Lawrence Pizer, here. He tells me the other day he was getting bored, and so he needed things to do. Thanks to PAC TV under the leadership of Julie Thompson, and also thank you again for the support of OTI Technologies and all of the many people who work to bring us this town meeting, all the boards and committees of the town. There's your 1-minute recess. So now we're going to go back and reconvene at 9:36 p.m. And now we're going to go to a vote on the main motion under Article 4. So if we can bring that up to town meeting and show it, and there it is. We're going to bring in the timer. And there's the timer, and so now we're going to vote. Now, you're voting on Article 4. It's a majority vote in order to pass this change to the bylaw, and town meeting members are voting on whether or not to approve the motion under Article 4. And then we'll continue in the warrant, and we're now going to show the results. And the results are as follows. 27 say yes, 101 say no, 2 abstentions. I'm going to call the vote. It does not pass. We had 130 town meeting members voting. We're going to continue to scroll through the precincts to show the vote. But while we do that, Article 5 is a motion. We have no motion, no action. And so at this point, the next action of town meeting would be that Mr. Canty moves to dissolve the special town meeting. And so what we're going to do is, once we scroll through all the precincts, we'll ask Mr. Canty if he wishes to speak to his motion to dissolve. Mr. Canty, do you care to be heard?
Moderator, but thank you.
Okay. All right. In that case, we're going to move on to the vote. And if you can bring it up on the screen, and this may be the last vote if it is a majority vote of town meeting. And so we're going to look for, there's the vote, and now we're going to look for the timer. There it is. And the timing will begin now. You're voting on whether to dissolve Plymouth Special Town Meeting. And if it is dissolved, that will conclude this evening. We'd like to thank everyone for your participation. We look forward to seeing you again the 3rd Saturday in October, if not sooner, at a special. But right now, the fall annual will be in October. That concludes the voting. We're going to, once again, 131 say yes, 3 still want to continue, 0 abstentions. We're going to scroll through the precincts, and again, thank you to everyone for this town meeting, and we look forward. We thank all of the hard work and preparation, and congratulations to all of you, the town meeting members, who attended and successfully participated on short notice, particularly the 27 new town meeting members and several others in addition to the 27. So it's successful, the vote carries, and this special town meeting is dissolved at 9:31 p.m. Good evening and thank you.